Welcome to another episode of The InEVitable. This is actually the last one we're recording in the first year of production. I'm very proud to say. I'm also very happy to say that we've done a great job in just overall.
Yeah.
We started in one place. Look, I have a very experienced host here, Johnny Lieberman. He's been doing podcasting for a long time, automotive expert. This was my first time podcasting. I know I blew it a lot of different ways, particularly in the way I talk into a microphone and some of this, trying to guide the conversation. But we're here now. Last one of this year, we're coming up in year 2, super strong. We have a great guest.
We got Bizarro Ed.
We have, well, I wish that was the case. It actually is very true. So Bizarro, if you know comic book characters, in the Bizarro world, there's this alternate universe where it's Bizarro Superman was evil and ugly and just a terrible person. That's me this episode because our guest coming up, just imagine if I was really good looking and super talented and could do martial arts and be a star of screen, big and small, in 2 huge countries. We have Daniel Wu, actor, director,
and
producer.
Car maniac. Yeah, races, restores. The list of cars he's owned is enviable.
Yeah, very generous. He gave us these sweatshirts that we're wearing right now.
We have a big revelation to make.
Yes.
This is going to blow your mind. You know how Santa and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny aren't exactly real?
Yes. We actually just did the interview with Daniel, and we're recording the introduction afterwards, and we've been doing that the whole time.
And yeah.
So I know it's mind-blowing.
I know.
But look,
will you recover, audience?
I know. We had such a great chat with him, covered a ton of topics. We covered at least 3 languages, I think.
We threw some Yiddish in there. Yeah.
Some Yiddish, some Mandarin, some Cantonese. And just super, super impressive dude. And what a way to close out our first year of InEVitable podcast. We're on for next year. We'll get to that when we get to that. But for now, let's bring on Daniel Wu.
Daniel Wu.
What's up, guys?
First of all, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
We got the swag.
Awesome.
This is the first time anyone ever brought us... No, Bogey. Bogey brought us swag.
Well,
I can't believe that.
And Freeman gave us awesome hats.
Oh, yeah. Freeman Thomas gave us hats and other stuff.
Well, this is very exclusive
Yes.
Student Driver swag. This is, Student Driver is a company between me and Sung Kang.
Yes.
We started during COVID because we were both out-of-work actors with nothing to do. And so we decided to create this company. And so this is our Spy versus Spy collection. This is Sung's Fuguzi and my Honda S800, the Chimpira. And then NorCal, SoCal, black and white.
This is perfect for me because I think I like this car better, but car notwithstanding, I would never wear white and LA, baby. So.
My brother and sister live in the Bay Area.
Okay, so represent.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I love
cool.
it.
I now live in LA, so that kind of doesn't apply to me now, but I'm still from the Bay.
Well, thank you. This is awesome.
Yes.
But so last time we spoke, I called you. I was texting you about something. Or called you, and you're like, "Hey, I'm about to do the 25 hours."
Oh yeah, I was
Thunderhill.
testing that day. Yeah,
yeah. I gotta go. So we do have a internationally acclaimed actor here who happens to be actually racing in not the most prestigious race in the world.
Hey, longest endurance race in the world.
Yes,
25 hours.
Trust me, they protect that.
I know.
I agree on the not prestigious. It's kind of a ragtag affair, but it is seriously challenging and seriously fun.
So you were telling me you had an all-night thrash because...
Yeah, so right after I got off the phone with you, I went to go test the car. It was Friday. This race starts on Saturday. And I get in the car, I'm driving out of pit lane, first gear, second gear, I short shift to third gear, no third gear.
And what kind of car, real quick?
Honda Civic Type R, made by HPD, so it's a race prepped Honda Civic Type R.
So you have no third,
conversion.
and you need third gear.
Yes, you do. Well, actually, the year before, we lost third gear, and we almost completed the race in fourth and fifth gear only. So it's debatable whether you need it.
So this was your second time? Third?
Yeah, second time attempting it.
Okay.
Second time failing at it. I'll get to that in a minute. But
no.
So we lost third gear. We spent the following 10 hours taking apart our transmission and then putting our old third gear in, hoping that would hold up for the rest of the race. We ran a crazy race. Rain, fog, cold,
Typical
everything.
Thunderhill.
Yeah, everything all at once.
Didn't they stop the race for
for 3 hours for fog? Last year, they stopped it for 8 hours for fog. So.
I was there, 12 years ago when it was they stopped the race about 11 p.m. for fog, and then we were let's go take a nap. Got back at 7 a.m., still fogged. And started at 9. It was crazy.
The fog is gnarly because it happened to me while I was on my stint. And so all of a sudden I'm just seeing maybe reflectors and I'm like, okay, I'm going to I think that's the apex. I'm
Right.
going to go for that. And I was lucky that it was most of the time. So
It's wild though, because I did Pikes Peak this year, and it was fogged in, and like that's the one thing you can't do anything about. Like, no one's a good fog
crazy.
driver.
It's really disorienting, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you feel like you're just floating in space all of a sudden. You can't see the ground, you can't see the sky, you can't see anything. So.
And you don't realize, like, you know the track, but you really don't know it on this granular level. And that's when I was luckily I was up by the top, but there was one section where suddenly the fog like cleared out, and I was like 100 feet further down the course than I thought I was.
Oh my God!
And like if that hadn't happened, I probably would have had a gnarly crash. And at that point, I gave up. I'm like, what?
How did you get involved with HPD?
Well, I started racing with my partner, Tazio Oda, is my co-driver. He owns the car. It's an HPD car. And so we ran it in the NASA work campaign last season.
Okay.
And I guess HPD started seeing me posting about it, and then they reached out, and we can establish a relationship. So I took part in the HPD GT3 Academy this year. I did the NSX car.
He's an actual racer.
It's fun.
Not a hobbyist.
Okay.
Well, it's very new to me, though. It's only since COVID. Because I was out of work actor also. This is nothing to do for a whole year.
Right.
And Tazio goes, "Do you want to go racing?" And I'm like, "Sure." I've been tracking for like 5 years or something like that. And gotten to the point, it was actually gotten to the point mentally where I was like, okay, what do I do now? Like, I've done this for a lot of times now, and like, what do I do? What's the next step? And he just came in at the right moment and brought me onto his team.
You're like, I'm an out of work actor. How can I burn
more money?
Right. Yeah,
great.
It's expensive.
It's nice and cheap, huh?
Yes.
Well, at least with the HPD and anything NASA, it's meant to be like not like
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's not like we're running SRO or ENZA or something like that, right? So it's well, I've looked at the numbers. I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to go there unless it's sponsored, because it's like not worth spending my kids' college money on.
Right.
Right. Oh, I did that with Pikes this year. It's not. It's crazy.
All right. But so I mean, 25 hours, even with a fog delay, that's a lot. I mean, how many hours did you actually get before you had the mechanic?
I did about almost 6 hours. I had 3 stints.
Okay.
And then we broke down in the 24th hour. But it was the last 12 hours was amazing because we were going back and forth between first and second place with the other car in our class. There was only 2 cars in the EO class.
Okay.
It was a Mustang, completely opposite car of what we had.
Right.
So we were kicking ass in the rain. Just taking everybody down in the rain, and then when it started to dry up, they started to pick up. We were very even in qualifying, but it was back and forth. We were 30 seconds behind with an hour left to go. We were pretty sure we could catch them, and then we lost their gear, and the transmission went out. And I was like,
that sucks.
Couldn't limp it. Couldn't just first.
So we thought about, because what we did last year was that happened. We lost third gear, and then we ran it in fourth and fifth gear for the rest of the race.
You can't make up time if you're missing third gear.
Yeah,
you can steady state, but you're not going to.
And we also blew up the diff. Like there was a hole like this big in the case and all that, and that was expensive, and we didn't want to risk it, like ruining the case. It was a brand new one too, so we just left it at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're gonna go again next year?
Sucks.
Yeah, I want to. Okay. I mean, I just want to complete it. I want to complete the goddamn thing,
Right. Yeah.
I want to go across the finish line. We pushed it across the finish line, but that's not the same,
Right.
So part of the
wild.
one of the goals of the podcast is to establish car guy credibility. Done. It's okay. All right. Well, it's nice having you.
But it is funny because I was bystander car guy, kind of interested in cars since I was a little kid, and then slowly got into it a little bit more and more and more, and then eventually knowing Sung, watching his Fuguzi build, then getting into building. So I built my 510 and went to SEMA also. Then I built this S800. And then doing track days and all that stuff. And then I started going, I don't really like sitting around car shows looking at cars. I'd rather drive them, right?
Right.
And then it just turned into this. And this has become my focus for the past 2-3 years.
Okay. I mean, that's a common thing. I've talked to like Magnus Walker, for instance, where he's like, yeah, I did 4,000 track days or whatever. And then it's just like, I'm done. I don't need to do any more track days.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that have gone from that to racing. But as we're kind of talking about, the money... Yeah, it's just crazy.
Restrictive. It's very restrictive.
Yeah, it's just
Well, and on the other side, you got into this as a reaction to the pandemic, which shut down most of your Hong Kong, your Chinese.
Both sides, actually.
Both sides, really.
Both sides. It was completely dead for a whole year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was
But that's
difficult.
picking up now, right?
Yes,
At
yes,
least on this part of the world.
yeah, no, and actually stuff was happening over there. I just didn't want to do the 21-day quarantine.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
like to do that, to be away from my family that long and have to quarantine on that end. It was like difficult. And there was this horror story. You know Jeremy Lin, the basketball player?
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
he went to go play ball there.
Yep.
And 2 years ago, he's playing there now. But 2 years ago, he went and he got COVID on the flight.
Right.
So he got put into hospital quarantine 29 days. 2 weeks later, I text him after. I'm like, hey, how's training going? And he's like, bro. And I go, what happened? And he's like, I just did another 18 days in hospital because he tested positive again. Because, you know, he was getting, they're doing the deep PCR test.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you have COVID, you can still test positive for a while.
Right.
So he did another 18 days. Then he had to do the mandatory 21-day hotel quarantine. So he did almost 70 days of quarantine, right? And I'm like, and then, so he was supposed to play basketball in October. He didn't play his first game until Christmas Day because he got out of shape. He lost weight, you know, all this stuff. He had to spend a month to get back in shape again and play again. So it was like, if I go for a movie and that happens to me, and then the movie's going to move on. They're not going to wait for me, right? They're not going to wait 70 days for an actor, right? So I was like, I'm not going to risk this. Like, I'm not going to risk not seeing my family for 2 months and then not doing a movie.
But
right?
did the industry over there shut down? Were they still trying to make movies, or
They were actually, you know, when they had it under control, which is now finally it's gotten a little out of control for them, right? But they had it quite under control with the zero COVID policy and all the lockdowns and all that stuff. So all my friends were still, I mean, they were shut down for a little bit and then they got back to it and then they started working because there's very little COVID going through the country. But now that they've, you know, loosened up the policy a little bit, now it's having its go at everything now. So it's kind of happening. What happened to us like a year or two ago is happening there now.
living with COVID?
Yes.
Are you still? You're heading over there still?
No, that project got canceled because it's a road movie, and so we're supposed to go like several locations. And with this stuff happening, like the producer's like, no, we're not going to do this right now. So it's on pause right now.
So what? We can go back. We'll go backwards with you because you have a long history. What are you working on? You just finished up Reminiscence?
Yeah, Reminiscence came out during COVID. I did that right before COVID. And then I did a season of Westworld, season 4 of Westworld.
That's right.
And
With our buddy Marsden, made a little cameo. I know Jonah Nolan real well.
Okay.
So
Yeah, he's a good car guy also.
Yeah, we go off-roading.
Yes. I've done it with him too. And his Nomad. Nomad.
That Nomad's insane. So the Nomad is an Ariel Atom that's like got a little bit of suspension. And we went on like, you know, a Black Diamond Trail, which you should not be able to do in a rear-wheel drive vehicle.
Yes.
And we had like a TRX, a Defender, like real solid stuff, and he just did it. He was the whole time.
Thing weighs like
1,500
pounds.
Nothing.
Yeah,
it's like a go-kart on dirt.
I was shocked by how capable. Because I remember the first obstacle, we're like, well, if you can't make it, just park it and we'll come pick you up. And then, boop, he just popped up next to us.
Right.
But he got a Defender 110 now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I got one too. My wife's that was my wife. But I took that Nomad out in the what's that park up north a little bit?
Hungry Valley.
Yeah, Hungry Valley up there.
I went there with him too
on the rally course.
Yeah,
and I was drifting the hell out of that thing. I actually pulled a tire off the rim, and I felt bad about that, but it was really, really fun.
I drove it at Streets of Willow, and it was a blast. It had the off-road tires, but I described it has a handbrake for just the rear brakes.
Yes.
It's the greatest thing in any car. I think every car needs a rear brake, handbrake.
Oh yeah.
It was so much fun.
Sorry, we digress.
No.
But so I did a season that came out, and then I did a show called American Born Chinese, which is on Disney Plus, coming out in March. So that
cool.
was
What's that about?
It's based
American
on
Born Chinese.
It's about Ed Lowe.
Yeah, no.
I'm not going to watch that.
Yeah.
It's
Nobody would.
Well, it is actually our stories because Gene Luen Wong is the graphic novelist who wrote the book and came out in 2009. It was one of the first graphic novels to win like a literary award, and it's about a 15-year-old kid in like a mostly white high school trying to fit in. And then this like fresh off the boat kid arrives, is everything he's like afraid of, which is like he has an accent, he's like dresses weird and all this stuff. And it turns out, and he's trying to fit into this school and he likes this girl and blah, 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 but this kid is like cramping his style. But it turns out this kid is the son of the Monkey King and he's come to Earth on a mission. Right. And so he enlists this kid and they become best friends and they go on this adventure and then they screw up. And then the Chinese gods have to come down to help them. And
wow.
I play the Monkey King. I play the father of that kid.
Nice.
And then Michelle Yeoh plays Guan Yin, the goddess of mercy.
Right,
She
right.
comes
Wow.
down.
Oh, that's a nice little
there's
small
all-
name drop.
It's cool. No, it's a cool project. So it's like young actors supported by like experienced actors.
Right.
Really
Right.
cool project. I'm looking forward to it.
So I know like Ed and I are basically from the same town, like one town over. But like, you know, I was one of maybe 4 Jewish kids in my school. And how many Chinese kids were at your school? Not counting your siblings.
Yeah, well, okay, then minus the siblings. Yeah, another like 3 or
Yeah,
3 or 4.
So did you? I know you're from Berkeley, right?
Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area, and
More.
it's pretty mixed there.
Okay.
I would say my elementary school, I lived in a suburb called Orinda, and that was not very mixed. But
yeah.
there-
But pretty Hispanic.
yeah, well, it was mostly like upper middle class white kids.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And my best friends in my grade were 4 Asian kids, right? So there's a Filipino guy, a Japanese American guy, another Chinese guy, and me. So I didn't feel like I was a minority, really.
Right.
And then I went to a private school in Oakland that was mostly Jewish and Asian and everything mixed, right?
That
And so-
Filipino kid, he was like the coolest kid, right? Like,
he was the
that-
toughest kid, so nobody
Yeah,
fucked with us,
exactly.
right? Like it was
Right,
like
right,
he came from Richmond, so he had to step back a grade, and he was like 13 in 5th grade.
Right.
So I roll with that kid. We
Right.
were
All the
fine.
Filipino kids in my school were like the cool. They had the coolest clothes.
No, he was
coolest
definitely cool.
hair.
He was a break dancer.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it was
Yeah,
all-
so
We didn't have,
it was
I don't
cool.
think we had some Vietnamese kids who were not the coolest kids. Well, we used to
They
play.
would cut you, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they were. But we used to play football. We'd play Channel Islands a lot. And they had the Samoans who
Oh, yeah.
were like
Oh, yeah.
500 pounds in like 9th
Right,
grade and
right.
would kill you. Yeah, they were.
Right.
They were dangerous.
Yeah, those kids. Yeah, they're dangerous. Right?
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, so pretty diverse. I would say the Bay Area is quite diverse.
Yeah. I mean, L.A. We grew up kind of on the outskirts.
Well, LA is diverse, but it's pocketed diverse, right? Like these areas of diversity, but it's not really mixed together, really.
Right. But ethnically, your dad's from.
Both my parents are from Shanghai.
So you're-
so
you-
Oh, okay.
100% Shanghainese, Chinese.
Do you speak Shanghainese?
So that was my first language. I understand it fully now, but like because I've picked up Mandarin and Cantonese, like I get it all mixed up sometimes.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to speak it, but I don't understand it completely.
So is it easier to go from Chinese to Mandarin, or?
Well, the grammar is all the same, but the
Right.
pronunciation is totally different. It's like the difference between like Portuguese, Italian, and Spanish, right?
Right.
Like Cantonese, I would say is more like Spanish. Portuguese, like Shanghainese, and then Italian is like Mandarin, right?
Well, I was
So,
going
like,
to say Portuguese has nothing to do with nothing. I mean, that's a crazy language. It sounds like you're
Right.
screaming in Russian.
Right. It's very different, right?
Right,
okay.
But like, so for example, like in Cantonese, how are you is lei hou ma,
Right.
Right. In Mandarin is ni hao ma,
Right.
And then in Shanghainese it's no hao va, right?
Oh, that
so it's like
sounds
the different.
totally-
You're
yeah.
using different parts of
the sinuses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Your face.
How did you?
Wow.
Because you. All right. So I totally want to get into this origin story. So
Okay.
you're fluent in growing up, or at least by ear, Shanghainese. Your English,
Sure.
your English is awesome.
Right.
Obviously, 'cause
Right.
you went to school here.
Right.
You went to Oregon.
Yep. University of Oregon.
Were you born in
Yep,
the state?
born
Yeah,
in
okay.
California.
Okay,
Totally
yeah,
ABC.
yeah.
That's why he's so tall.
Yeah. yes. A lot of hamburgers and milk.
Yeah, all the
Right,
hormones in the meat and the
Yeah,
milk.
That's right.
Yep, for
That's
sure.
right.
And then, how did you get discovered?
So I graduated from Oregon in 1997 with a degree in architecture.
Yeah.
A 5-year degree. I'd done like all these internships over the summer. I knew that the profession wasn't for me because school was like super, super creative, but the profession wasn't. Like
Right.
I'd
Build a Taco Bell.
Yes, or a mall,
Yeah.
or a hotel, or whatever. And I
Right.
worked for all these different companies, or I worked for like a boutique agency or a company here in LA, and it was like very competitive within the company. Like these people are fighting to be the designer. And backstabbing and crazy stuff going on.
I used to date a girl who was an architect, and it was I was like, what? I had no idea it could be like this. And
Yes,
it was like,
and then for very little pay on top
Right,
of that, right?
right.
right, but like megalomaniac boss,
Mm-hmm.
like would let all the employees fight. It was
And
crazy.
talk about like Me Too stuff, like that definitely happens, because it's like it's a weird artist environment, but there's a lot of competition, right? So
Right.
I saw all that, and I was like, none of that's for me, but I want to do something creative. So 97 was my graduation year. I decided to go back to Hong Kong because Hong Kong was the handover was happening.
Yes.
Hong Kong going back to China. And so as an American, you don't get to witness so many historical moments. And I wanted to see
Right.
this. I wanted to be part of that.
Oh, interesting.
So my goal was to go there hang out for a couple months and then travel around Asia and then come back and figure out what I was going to do for a job, right? So I go there, I see the handover, it was amazing, but it was not what I expected. It was like 10 days of partying. Everyone had 10 days of party. It was like a rave party with Grace Jones and Boy George playing.
Wow.
It was cool, and there was an emotion moment when the flags changed and all that. Right. So I was traveling. I went to Japan first. I spent a lot of money there, came back, and actually, when I was there, I met an architect that I really liked named Shin Takamatsu. And so he offered me a job, but then I came back and I was thinking I would have to head back to the States because I had to spend all my money. I had like $400 left or something like that in a bar. And a woman comes up to me and scouts me to do a TV commercial, right?
And this is in
Hong Kong.
Where?
Hong Kong.
What bar?
I was in Lang Kwai Fong. I don't remember what bar. I don't remember what bar, but I hung out in Lang Kwai Fong like all the time.
Lang Kwai Fong is where all the expats go, where it's just a party. It's a tight street. It's open like all night long. All sorts of
it's
fun.
just all bars,
drinking,
a lot of drinking. You
partying.
can stand out on the streets drinking.
You have
I have family there. I used to go back every couple of years.
okay.
So I did the same thing when I was young.
So I was wondering, like, why? But you're Shanghainese. Why? What
So
was
my mom, Shanghai, during the war, went to Hong Kong.
Okay.
And then they stayed in Hong Kong, and then she came to the States. And then my dad was Hong Kong, and he went to Taiwan University, and then came to the States.
Okay.
So they met in New York City, actually.
Okay.
So I had family in Hong Kong, and my sister went there 10 years before me in 1988. So she was there. So I have like all these roots there, my cousins, all that.
So you're going back. You were already going back regularly.
Yeah, like every couple of years. I loved it. Hong Kong still is one of the coolest cities in the world. It's amazing.
I sadly have not been. I'd love to go.
Oh, man.
I'd love to go. I mean, just for the food, I would.
Yeah, the food is hands down the best in the world.
Yep.
Everything from like dollar street food to really high end Michelin stuff.
You get really good curry. It's like crazy.
I've read about it my whole life.
Yeah.
I've meant to go.
Car culture is interesting there.
Very
it's
interesting.
Really interesting. But anyway, yeah. So
she scouts you.
scouts
and
me.
what's the? She comes and says, "Hey, are you?" She started talking to you in.
She just goes, "Are you interested in doing a TV commercial?" And I was like, "Does it pay?" And then she's like, "Yeah." I go, "How much?" And it was equivalent to like $4,000. And I was like, "For a 21-year-old kid," I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do that."
Yeah.
And so I did it, and then didn't think much of it. And I actually got some other jobs, some modeling gigs and stuff through that. But then that commercial came out. It was for a bank. It was a bank job. I was like shopping
Which
in
one?
Hang Seng Bank. So Hang Seng An Hong, right? And so that came out, and then a director of my first movie saw that ad and called me in for a meeting. So I go in and we have an interview. We talk for like an hour and a half, and then I walk out. And then a couple hours later, he calls me and he goes, "I want you to play the lead in my movie." I go, "What?" I go, "I can't even speak Cantonese. I've never acted before. Like I don't think I can do this." And also, it was a very challenging role. It was a gay love story, right? And there's nothing to do with my background at all. Right. I've done martial arts since I was a little kid. I thought maybe I could be like a stuntman in a Jackie Chan movie. Like my dream was to get kicked down by Jackie Chan, like down a flight of stairs or something like that. Right? That'd be it. But I was like, I don't think I can do this. And he goes, "No, I really think you could." I remember him asking me, like, where I grew up, what my background was, and what I thought of homosexuality, all this kind of stuff. I was like, I grew up in San Francisco. I was like, no big deal. So he was having trouble casting this movie because nobody wanted to touch it. Like Andy Lau, Leon Lai, all those guys wouldn't want to touch it because this is before Brokeback Mountain, before it was kosher to do that kind of stuff, or it was an acting challenge, right?
Right.
And so he couldn't find anybody, and finally,
what year is this?
1997.
Okay.
So about 2 months after I arrived in Hong Kong, right?
Okay.
And so he offered me the movie, and so then I had this script. I had this job offer from this architect, right? And the job offer from the architect came in by fax. This is how long ago it was.
Right.
And it was like we start the day at 10 a.m. We work until 10 p.m. Then we break for dinner. Then we go, and after dinner we work until the work is done for the day. You will live in the studio. You live in the office, and the pay was like $500 a month. I was looking at it. I was like, nah, I went through this before. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And I saw the movie contract, and I called my mom, and she's like, "You can always fall back on architecture, but when are you going to get offered a movie, right?"
Right. That's wild.
And I was like, "Okay, let's go."
And a lead. Like you just got offered a lead.
It was crazy.
I mean, that's
very crazy. And I didn't speak the language, and I never acted before.
When he did the interview in English, or was he?
Yeah, in English.
Was this the Hong Kong?
Hong Kong director Yong Fan is still a really great friend of mine today. He's an art house director. He was a photographer. He traveled the world doing photography, and then came back to Hong Kong to make films. But small art house films, And
let's just pause for a second. Did you know, like, at this point, you're like, I'm a good-looking guy. Like I've had this people telling me this already, or you're just like, what is this dude talking about? Like,
Well, okay, so arriving in Hong Kong is when I would say I got empowered because I mean things happened to me that never happened to me here.
Okay.
You know, like going to bars or going out and just girls coming straight up to me and being very aggressive with me. Like that never really happened
Yes.
here that much. And so there was a sense that there was something going on and.
Okay.
And being casted for a TV commercial, scouted, like just picked out of the blue, like things like that started happening, and I had a sense of like, okay, something's different here.
That happens to you in Hong Kong?
no. Well, I was as a matter of fact, I mean,
Had to go there.
I am a good-looking guy. No, it
you
happened.
are?
It happened. Oh, excuse me. Having my brother.
Your
so
brother's a good-looking guy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Glad you. I'll let him know that. Elliot, thank you.
I've seen him.
He's actually your age, and there is a story. And he's living in Japan right now. So I was texting him like, "What was the story again?" A similar thing happened. I can't remember. It was around 98 or 99. We were over there. He walks out of a mall or we're out to dinner or something, and some lady literally like stops him and said, "I'm a talent scout. Do you want to you're an actor or anything?" And my brother just waved her off.
Is this in Hong Kong? Or?
Yeah, it's in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I was like, this gets alternate reality to my brother.
Tell your
So,
brother he
Elliot, you missed out.
There was actually a lot of that going on in that era.
Right.
There was like wanting to look for like ABCs.
Juxing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
because we look different. We're taller.
Right.
We look a little bit different. We carry ourselves
haircuts.
even differently.
Usually, you had like the high top fade, different haircut,
slightly different style. All that stuff. So the people would pick people out like
Yeah.
that. There was people like Michael Wong. All these guys that went over at that time. They were picked out like that. David Wu. There's a bunch of Americans that went over at that time.
Right.
And so because they're different, they're personality different. Like
Right.
having an American upbringing is very different than an
Yes.
Asian upbringing.
Yes.
Just education in general. Like
Sure.
Believe me, your relatives will let you know.
right.
Oh,
yes.
gosh.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, you're so American, right?
Exactly.
You're white. They call white boy. We're actually called white boy.
Oh, look at you drinking ice water
Yeah.
at dinner. Like, God, like what are you? Like not drinking hot tea like everybody else.
Right.
Get out of here.
My wife really hates that. she was in Hong Kong for 20 years. She's Jewish American, but she loves ice water, and so many people just like harp on her for drinking ice water when she's pregnant. It was like a bad thing, a super bad thing.
Oh, that's so weird.
It's a health thing. They think it's like
no,
brings
I know,
really
I know.
bad
I've
for
been to
your
China,
internals,
but,
right?
Yeah. No, it's just like that's a funny thing.
All right. So then you do this movie. How'd you get through not knowing any Cantonese?
So luckily I had 3 months to prepare. And so I go up to the director. I go, I don't know anything about acting, but I know a little bit about architecture. So I go, I'm looking at this character like a building, right? Like the foundation that is like a person's backstory, right? And so like how they grew up, where they came from, blah, blah, blah. That's where the building sits on, right? And then the structure is like who he is internally. The skin of the building is who he's trying to present to the world, right? So I'm looking at this character like this. And he goes, that's interesting. I've never heard anybody do that before, but like, go for it. He's like, go
with
for
what
it.
you know. Yeah.
And then we had 3 months to prepare, so I had all the dialogue ready, just recorded on a little micro cassette tape. I just play it back every night. I understood Cantonese, but I couldn't speak it.
Right.
That's how I prepared for my bar mitzvah. We just had a tape.
Yeah, right.
It's the same thing.
A lot of my Jewish friends growing up, like, that was the same thing. It was like they're learning those songs and everything, right?
Yeah.
It's like they had to learn it that way. It's like phonetically. So I was like, this is the only way I can figure out how to do it. So I'm just going to play these tapes back, and just every night I'm just repeating to myself. And I had a little video recorder. I videotaped myself doing it.
But then how do you react to like when I mean unless he just shot it just you and there was no reaction, but if you're in a scene with someone else, like
That's a very good question. The script was translated into English for me, so I knew what everyone's saying, and also I understood a bit of Cantonese.
Okay.
So my speaking of it was not great, but I understood what people were saying, so that was easier. So it wasn't like I'm just waiting for someone to finish talking and then I start talking, right? Because that's a big, huge part of acting, right? Is reacting to what people are saying. It's very important, right? A very important part. So and none of this I knew. I didn't know any of this. I was just doing it.
But you're a
Just
smart
doing
guy.
it.
You could figure out like the basics.
Kind of, sort of. But
You
I
was
was
super nervous at first. Were you like?
Well,
just,
I was actually more nervous than second and third time I started acting. The first time I didn't, because I didn't know anything. Ignorance is bliss, right?
Sure.
Because I didn't know anything, I was just winging it, right, and just doing it. And I actually think for the first 3-4 years, that was my best performance because I wasn't thinking so hard about it, right?
Interesting.
And just did it, right? And I looked at it this way. It's like, this is the story. This is a love story. It's a gay love story. I don't know anything about that, but I do know what it's like to fall in love.
Sure.
And the big point of the thing was this guy finding his identity and his parents finding out and being disappointed by that. At the end of the story, it's really sad. He kills himself, right? And so I know about disappointing my parents in many other ways, right?
Don't we all?
Right? And so I was like, okay, I know all these things. So I'm going to put that into this character and just figure it out that way. And that's how it happened, like basically how it happened.
And so, and you, because I remember, I'm trying to think, like, I can't remember when it came out. There was a Will Smith movie from the 90s. It was 6 Degrees of Separation.
Yes.
Donald Sutherland.
Yes.
I think
So I
Anthony
think that
Michael
came out like
Hall.
right before that happened. So that was definitely, I looked at that.
And Will Smith, his character was secretly gay, and there was a kiss scene, like him and Anthony Michael Hall. But the knock on Will Smith at the time was he wouldn't actually do the kiss on camera. They had to Anthony Michael Hall had to like come in and kiss the camera.
Right.
So like
right.
it wouldn't, you know what I mean? He didn't want to be, even though he's playing a gay guy in the scene, he's kissing a naked man.
Yes.
He wouldn't do it because he didn't want to really be gay.
Didn't
whatever.
want that to be committed to celluloid.
Yeah,
But it was also like the '90s, and just things were just different,
Right,
You know,
right.
so that
Interestingly, that did not happen there because there was kissing, there was shower
and
scenes,
you didn't
there was
worry, you weren't worried about.
Well, it was interesting. No, to me, it was like, look, this is my one chance at making a movie. It could be my last chance, right? So
Sure.
why don't you go 100%? You know,
Right.
like and not half-ass it, right? And I was like, I don't have a career to worry about. There's
I'm
no
not
career.
ruining my rap career.
Yeah, there's and there's no image that I'm worried about. Like all these guys that turned down the movie, they were worried about hurting their image or affecting things. So,
And did that hurt you in any way?
so I thought it would, but it had kind of the same effect that it happened to Will Smith on 6 Degrees. It got him way more other jobs. They're like,
People are
he's
like,
a serious actor.
He's a serious
right?
actor. Got
So
it.
same thing with me is like internally within the business, all these directors like, who's this kid that's like willing to
He'll do anything I
sacrifice?
say.
Yeah. And so I got a lot of.
fascinating.
2 weeks later, I was on my next movie, and then after I finished this one, I was on my next movie, and then that first year, I did 3 movies as a nobody,
Wow.
as a new
Wow.
guy, right? And then, I mean, the next year after that was 4 movies, and after that 6 movies. It was crazy. It was
Wow.
like, so I got a lot of respect within the
And
business.
this is all in the Hong Kong film scene.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
exclusively. So you've learned Cantonese by this point.
Well, I would say it took me 5 years to be totally comfortable with it.
Okay.
right?
Oh wow.
But it
so
was,
you made like
so I was
20
still-
movies.
Yeah, I still made 20 movies doing it phonetically like that. In fact, I still have to.
crazy.
I still can't read or write Chinese. Like I'm still only 20-30%.
Thank God, because if you learned to read and write, I'd be like, man, I'm
No,
such
dude,
a
it was
disappointment.
Well,
too
you are
hard.
such a
I am a disappointment.
At that age, it's too hard to learn to read and write. It was like
Yeah,
way
Dad.
too
See, it's
difficult.
very difficult.
Which is why my kid right now is in Chinese immersion school because I refuse to do it.
Ed wakes up in the middle of the day going, "Yeah, Dad, see."
See, no, it's, he'll never.
I know. We
he'll
know.
never watch this.
We know.
anyway.
Your wife just hears it in bed, like
One day I'm going to
muttering it
steal
out.
his therapist file. I'm really curious.
Oh, this is fascinating. So wait, what was the name of this first movie? Is it
Bishonen.
Bishonen? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, it is on there listed
Yeah.
as your.
And what's that
first
translate to?
It's actually a Japanese name because that's actually the name of the sake, and it's like beautiful boy love or something like that.
Okay.
Something like that.
A little on the nose,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yes,
one.
yes,
And
very on the
then,
nose.
how long was the shoot for that movie?
That was like we shot it. I would say in October, and we were done by December, so 2 months.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So this is wild. So you do this one, and all of a sudden they're like, "Who's this new cat on
Yeah.
the scene?"
Yeah.
And you're getting all the write-ups and the gossip
Yeah.
and the trades,
Yeah.
right? Like you've shown everything. So like, wow,
Yeah.
this guy's like, he's the real deal, real actor. Then you pick up. I mean, you got into one of these. For those who don't know Hong Kong cinema, there's a long history of like cop movies.
Yeah.
They're long running
Gangster.
Chow
gangster
Yun
ones,
Fat.
right? Exactly.
Yep.
And
that
Andy
was
Lau,
my
Lau-
guy.
Lau
Yep,
Dak Wan,
mine too.
like, yeah.
Mine too.
So you got into Young and Dangerous.
Yes, yeah, that was my second film. Actually.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, and then
Wow.
you went and do like Gen X cops. You do all of these
Action.
action was where. So this was the question: where you had already studied martial arts, wushu.
Yeah. Since
In
I
the Bay
was-
Area?
Yeah, I was 12 years old.
What
started
style?
At 12 years old. Shaolin Kung Fu first.
Oh.
And then I wanted to compete, so I started doing wushu. And so
Which
the- the-
which Shaolin Kung Fu?
Northern Shaolin.
Mai Zhong Lo Han.
No, that's Southern, I think, right? My Zhong Lo Han. Sorry. No, so I did Northern Long Fist.
Oh,
Right. Changkun.
Okay.
Right. So my teacher was from Beijing, and that's where I started picking up Mandarin. Is because he spoke Mandarin, right?
And then how far did you get down?
So
There's no belts in Kung Fu.
Yeah,
belts keep up your pants.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Exactly. It's true.
Wow.
We don't have that.
I studied Tong Soo Do. We had belts.
When we competed, it was it's interesting because belt system here becomes like a money making thing.
Sure,
Yes.
of
It's
course.
like this whole you need to test. Here's your $100 testing
Oh,
fee.
of course.
Right.
Of course.
So we never had that. It was like when you compete, it was beginner, intermediate, advanced, right? And so
Gotcha.
I did traditional Shaolin Kung Fu for 6 years, and then I switched over to Wushu, and then was competing in that. I started the Wushu Club at the University of Oregon.
So you were serious about martial arts?
Very. And then we organized the first collegiate Wushu tournament. So it was like the UCLA.
Oh, so you're
Oregon,
legit like a
Berkeley.
dangerous person.
At the time. Well, so Wushu is not a MMA fighting martial art.
Wushu's very fast,
Form.
very crisp. The weapons.
It's Jet Li. What Jet Li was, right?
But that's the style for Hong Kong.
Yes. Well, it's very transferable. Like, so the thing about Wushu is like you have to learn a lot of different styles. You have to be very precise with your movements. So it transfers over to movie making very easily with choreography.
Okay, but so what did Jet Li?
Jet Li was Wushu, which is
He's
but
a
within
Wushu like a
it's
national Wushu.
So Wushu is a
champion.
very general term for a modernized form of martial arts that started like in the 50s in China, where they took all the traditional forms and kind of made a sport out of it, right? And so, because they wanted to create a sport that people can compete with, and they can, make a sport out of it instead of this traditional kind of
regional
type
hodgepodge,
things, right?
Yeah.
And so, and they made it a national sport. And so, you do a form in that style, so it could be northern style, southern style. Weapons, whatever, and then you're judged like a gymnastics routine. Like you get points, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the kata part of Japanese martial arts training, right?
Right.
And then sparring is a different thing. So there's sparring.
No,
and fighting also.
I studied
Sanda, right?
Yeah,
I
Sanda,
studied Tong Soo Do, so Korean style, but I mostly stuck to the form part of it, not to the sparring.
Right. So Wushu is mostly form oriented.
Just YouTube Wushu. It is insane. First of all, there's a lot of the criticism is like the weapons at this point they're just theatrical. Like the sword
They're
is
floppy.
it's like aluminum foil. Like it's like
I like
it makes a big
I like the
noise.
dance aspect.
Right.
Like boxing. If you're gonna, I like boxing.
Sure.
Because it's that's the violent.
But the jump from sort of more traditional Shaolin Kung Fu to Wushu is pretty steep, right? Because you go from like it's a very like a lot of that to like a really acrobatic.
So one of my Siheng, like my older brothers in the Northern Shaolin style school, also did Wushu very early on. He started learning it in the 80s and learned it with a group of people that were like early adopters in the U.S. So he was already teaching me basics in the traditional Shaolin school.
Okay.
So I was learning Wushu basics unknowingly, and then there's a lot more athleticism involved, like high jumps, spinning kicks, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're doing
sounds
that.
like Tong Soo Do,
And as a 16, 17-year-old kid, you're like, I want to do that shit. Like that's cool, right? And so that's how it kind of led me into Wushu.
And you had the flexibility.
Yeah. So Shaolin had that, like that taught us the Northern Shaolin.
But you were that tall. Like a lot of the guys who end up, Jet Li's pretty small. He's he's
5'6"
He's a small dude. You were
like 6. Well, not at that time. I was probably like 5'7", 5'8".
Okay.
And I'm 6 foot and a half now, right?
Okay.
6 foot and a half inch.
So you were able to do all that.
Yeah.
All the jumping.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard. It was hard on my back. Like my back, I had back pains. Like in
And
my
when
20s.
you started your film career, though, like there was a lot of martial arts, but did you have to like?
Well, I actually hid that from a lot of people in the beginning because I didn't want that to take over, right? Because a week after getting that movie, I met Jackie Chan at a party. This is crazy. That year was very crazy for me.
Yeah.
Like it was all this fate stuff happening.
Right.
But I met Jackie Chan at a party. A friend of mine who was training martial arts. I was training her martial arts. She was an actress at the time. Brought me to this party because she knew I was a huge fan of Jackie, right? So I go to this party. It was the opening of a restaurant that he invested in, right? So we're hanging around, and I'm just off the side watching, right? And she goes, "Hey, come meet Jackie." I'm like, no. Like they say, don't ever meet your heroes, right?
Right.
I didn't want to meet him. Like he could say something and just like ruin all my years of worshiping him, right? So she dragged me over to him, and there was like a reporter following him around and all this stuff. And she goes, "This is my friend. He's doing some commercials and stuff, and he knows martial arts." And he goes, "What's your phone number?" And I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
And he goes, "What's your phone number?" And then the reporter that was standing there with a pen and pad, she just goes, she just hands it to me because she recognized that moment. So I wrote it down and I gave it to him, and I'm like, he's not gonna call me, right? And then like that was a Friday, and then Monday, his manager Willie Chan calls me, and goes, "Hey, Jackie, you left a very big impression on Jackie. Come into the office."
Well, wait, just by standing there, you left a big.
Well, we chatted for like a minute though. Literally, it was very quick, and he was gone. Right.
Yeah.
And so he looked at me, heard I did martial arts, and then that was it. So I go in on Monday to this meeting. Willie Chan, which is who made Jackie Chan, is his manager, right? Goes, Jackie was very interested in you. You know, it's a bad time in the industry though, so I can't really promise you anything, right? I go, well, I was just offered this movie. He goes, oh, okay, we'll manage you then. And so it just happened that way.
I mean, that's pretty.
And
good
I knew
story.
nothing. I knew nothing about Hong Kong film industry, nothing except that I was a fan.
Do other actors just hate you?
That's why I don't really tell this story to my other actor friends, especially Asian American actor friends, because Sung, they slung it for years to try and get to where they are today, right?
Right.
I was incredibly lucky.
For the context, a guy shows up in Hong Kong, looking like this, tall, and then says, "I have a martial arts background." That doesn't. It sounds like Hong Kong. It grows on trees. It doesn't.
No, that's what I'm saying. But I know. Like, I lived in LA most of my life. I know how the actor's story.
Sure.
And the fact that, I mean,
that's
that's ridiculous.
Definitely,
that's all I'm saying.
It's a crazy story.
Oh wait, your parents were super supportive of you doing all the martial arts stuff.
Oh yeah. My parents were supportive. They would not let me spar, so that was the thing. They didn't want me to get hurt.
Interesting.
You know? So I couldn't play football. I couldn't play anything dangerous, like now that I'm car racing.
Yeah. So that's more like car racing.
And you're a good student to get into an architecture program.
I was okay. I went to a private school that I was like a B plus student.
Yeah,
but that was like
Oregon.
But that was like a D.
Stanford.
That was a D at this private school. Like,
right.
And a D in the parents in the
yeah, because so my first choice was Cornell. I didn't get in there. That was a massive disappointment for them. You know.
Okay. Did you apply to Cal Poly's architecture?
I did. I did not get in. I only applied to 5 schools because I was like, okay, architecture's my thing. And I thought that was the smart way in, but actually it was the harder way in because each of those programs only accepts a applied people.
I got into Cal Poly's program.
Architecture?
He was going to do
awesome.
And I didn't go.
Oh, wait, you were
No. I didn't. I applied. I was at high school in 94.
He went to SC. He'll tell you.
But I was 92, so it was just 2 years before.
So I applied to Cal Poly. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I applied to Cal Poly and I got in. I had a great photography background, whatever. Mm-hmm. But my dad said, it's a great career. My friend's an architect. Talk to her. So I had a 30-minute phone call with her. She's like, it's the best education you'll ever get. You'll learn physics. You'll learn art. You'll learn math.
Absolutely.
You'll learn sculpting, the whole thing. You'll learn the classics. Great story. You need to be a storyteller when you come out because you got to sell your designs and that. You'll be poor for at least 5 to 10 years. And then if you make it through, you might end up at a great prestigious firm as a partner or something like that. But it's a tough road. And I was like, thank you. Not interested.
Right.
So I got out early. I kind of wish I had gone now.
Well, that's the thing is I credit the education for everything I have right now because it taught me a creative process. It taught me how to think things through. It taught me how to be a critical thinker. It taught me how to defend because you have to present projects.
Yeah.
And the professor's criticizing your crap right there and you got to defend it, all that stuff. So it helps everything that I do with what I'm doing now. I was able to transfer that architecture education to acting and to filmmaking, right? And it's the same thing. And when I produce now, that's even more like architecture than anything else because architecture, as an architect, you design something, but it's also about getting the best people to build the thing for you, right? So the best woodworkers, the best steel guys, the best, contractor, whatever, to come together and make your vision come true.
Believe in your vision.
Yeah, and as a producer and director, you're doing that also. Right. So it's really the same thing.
Okay.
Wow.
So your parents were supportive of the martial arts, not the physical, not the real.
So what'd your dad think of acting though?
Oh man, he was pissed off.
Tell me.
Because my dad wanted to be an engineer since he was 7 years old. Right, and that's what he became. He did that. He worked for Bechtel, this engineering company, for 25 years. Bechtel, right, he got the gold clock. He did one path his whole life. Right. And so when he saw that happen to me, he called me and he's like, "Why did you go to architecture school for 5 years? It's a waste. You wasted it." And then for the first 2 years of my career, he kept calling me and going, "When are you coming back to get a real job?" Right, because he thought filmmaking was fooling around.
And he didn't care about the money. Or was there any?
I didn't. I said the first movie I made $7,000. That was it, right? And so it wasn't about the money, but I was surviving. I was getting by. I was totally fine. Probably more than if I was in architecture for sure.
For sure, yeah.
But the point was he did not think, and he also was worried about the gangster aspect of Hong Kong films.
A lot of the movies are financed by that.
Well, in the early '90s for sure.
Yeah.
I was near the end of the heyday, so most of them had gotten out of it by then. But my dad came from a family of gangsters in Shanghai, right?
Oh, nice.
Like his father was a gangster, and he had left that life because he didn't like that life.
Sure.
Like my grandfather had 4 wives at once in one house.
Wow.
You know, all that kind of stuff.
Sounds like a headache.
So my dad was like, "Is there a pattern here?" Like he was afraid that I would get involved in all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
that was also a fear of his. All this kind of stuff, and then so eventually, he came to Hong Kong. He came to a set and saw me working. And I remember this, like, this is a typical Asian father thing. He didn't say much. And the end of the day, it was like a 12-hour day. And then we go home, and then he passed me on the shoulder, and he goes, "You work really hard," like that. And I was like, oh, he accepted it finally.
And how'd your mother feel about the film?
My mom was cool because my mom was a college professor. She taught business administration at a small university, St. Mary's College. In
St. Mary's.
Yeah. So she had been around kids her whole life, and she was a college counselor and all that kind of stuff. So that's when she said, when are you going to be offered a movie? You can always fall back on architecture. That was her advice to me, and I just went with that. So she was always into that. And my mom always wanted to be known or famous or whatever. So if her kid could be that way, then she was very happy.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
And you weren't just like a little bit famous. Like you were nominated and won several. You've won 3 times. You won a Golden Horse.
Yep.
For New Police Story in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Hong Kong Film Awards Best New Director.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007, and Best New Director in the Chinese Film Media Awards. But that Golden Horse that's like the Oscars.
Yeah, there's 2. There's the Hong Kong Film Awards and the Golden Horse. Hong Kong Film Awards is obviously Hong Kong, and then the Golden Horse is Taiwan. Both of them prestigious award shows for our business, right? Because Hong Kong films traveled all around Asia, so Singapore, Taiwan, whatever. So both of those were very important to us, and so getting that was awesome.
Did you shout out to your parents or bring them?
The last thing I said is, "Mom, Dad, this is for you," and I raised it up to them. And then that award was sitting in their house until my dad passed away this year, and I took it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So hey, real quick, not real quick, but I want to change off film for a second to your dad. A friend of mine who works at the Peterson Museum called me and said, "Hey, do you know Daniel Wu?" Because I just happen to know a lot of Hollywood people that have cars.
Right.
I do know Daniel Wu. I just hung out with him. And he goes, do you know about his dad's Porsche? And I go, I heard a little bit. He goes, we want it for the 75 years of Porsche in California exhibit. Tell us about your dad's Porsche.
So my dad, I remember this very clearly because was never really a car guy. I mean, we had cars. We had interesting cars like Volvo 240 wagons, and he had a Mercedes 300 SD, 83. But
this is like an alternate reality. We had a Volvo 240D sedan, and my dad had a 300 turbo diesel.
No way. We had a turbo diesel also. Yeah.
Did you have a van again at some point?
No, we didn't.
How about a Toyota Previa?
No, we didn't. Well, my dad wouldn't go Japanese because he'd experienced the war.
Shanghai.
Right.
Oh,
my dad got there later.
Yes, yeah.
After he read The Rape of Nanking, he swore off.
Really? So my dad experienced all that stuff.
Yes.
So that's why he was like, "We're never ever
Only
getting a
German
Japanese
cars.
car, right?"
Well, it's funny because my family was like no German cars.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, exactly same thing.
Yeah.
So,
and my mom actually, when she was still alive, when I bought an Audi, and she was like, "How could you buy a German car?" And I'm like, "I know all the people that built it. Like, they're really nice people."
we had RCA TVs.
Of course,
we had nothing Japanese in our house.
That's the old Jackie Mason joke with Jews is like, never buy a German car, never buy a Mercedes. Meanwhile, your camera, your underwear, everything you own is made by Germany.
And then I'd grow up in school and people getting Chinese, Japanese mixed up. I'm like, no, there's a clear difference. Very clear difference.
Yeah.
In my household, very clear difference. But my dad eventually gave up on that later in life. Right? Much later in life.
Interesting.
But where were we at? Oh yeah.
Oh, I was asking.
Yeah.
About
So
the Porsche,
he never was a sports car guy ever, and I think it was the influence on our street because we lived on a street with 4 houses, and the house to our right, to our left, was a 70-something 911T, and then to the right was an 85 Carrera.
So he felt the societal pressure.
He was retiring. And I remember I was in my bed in my room asleep or about to go to sleep, and he busts in and he goes, "I'm going to get a Porsche." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'm going to get a Porsche." I'm like, "Okay, whatever, Dad." And I just went back to sleep. And the next morning we get up and he's like amped on this. And like, we're going to the dealership. So we go to the dealership and he orders a 911, right? And I'm with him. So I had previously like spec'd all the colors on our cars. So he goes, "You choose the color." So that's why I have this unique color. It's this cassis red.
Oh, great
color that Farah had.
Yeah,
She had one of those. But I didn't know it was a rare color at the time. I was like, this is unique.
Right.
And I now tracking back, like I realize how much of an oddball I am. I always do something that no one else does, right?
That's fine. Yeah.
And so I chose that color, but I also made him get the turbo tail, even though it wasn't a turbo.
Right.
I was like, Dad, you gotta get the turbo tail. Right. If you're not gonna get the turbo, I tried to convince him to get the turbo, but he wouldn't.
And he was cool with because cassis red is basically like a light purple.
Yeah.
He was cool with that.
Totally fine with it, but
Okay.
and then it became like hell to get it because there was none.
Yeah.
Right, and I think they found it in L.A. The dealership found one in L.A. and brought it up here. But I'm glad I didn't go this way because I did see one in this spec before. I wanted it to be cassis red with a white interior.
Yeah.
Because it's 80s.
White interior is always a terrible idea. In retrospect.
Except in a Lamborghini.
But I seen it.
Yeah.
But I seen one actually
Oh,
cassis
sure.
red with a white interior, and it was just jacked on the inside. It looked terrible, right?
White is a bad.
But we went with the burgundy interior, and it's
seriously?
so it's burgundy with the cassis. It
That's
matches
wild.
really well.
That's
That's
wild.
really great.
What
What a
year?
wild color.
88. So the last year of the 911.
But what a wild
the G-body.
color. I mean,
That
a-
was your dad's retirement
Retirement gift
present
to himself.
To
yeah.
himself.
Yeah. And then he only drove it on weekends. So like by the time I took it over, which was like 10 years ago, only had like 70,000 miles on it, something like that.
Again, alternate universe. So
his
I
dad
have
bought the turbo.
Oh, you really?
I have a 1987 930. I got
No way.
I got a white with guards red interior with white wheels. Now my dad didn't buy it new.
Right.
He bought it 92, 5 years old.
His dad's also a heart surgeon. So
He's not a
he had
surgeon.
some
He's a
skill.
cardiologist.
He had some
But,
skill, yeah.
So typical Asian path, engineer. Okay.
Right, and he bought it. This is a heartbreaking story. We actually grew up with a lot of Japanese cars. He loved Japanese cars. He bought the first RX-7 when it came out in 77 or 78.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
79.
Yeah,
Right.
79.
And he said he bought it and he loved that car until it got, in less than a year, it got a crack on the dash from the sun.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, man, these Japanese cars, they drive really well, but they still haven't figured this thing out. So he's like, sold it, made more money on it, selling it, be the first guy to buy it, first guy to sell it. Then fast forward like 12 years, we were a Honda family. The Honda dealer calls up and says, hey, we got this new car coming in. It's from this brand Acura. It's called an NSX. It's pretty. You should come and check it out. So my dad goes in, brings me, and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, Dad, Dad, you got to buy it. Dad. And he's like, I bought that RX-7 long time ago, bought that RX-7. And then the dash got, I don't think so. I don't know if I'm not going to buy this in the first year. Picks up the newspaper, finds this 87 turbo, and he's like, I'm going to get this instead. And I was so bummed because I was like, when you look at like this time I was in high school, it's like a 90s, and I'm like, that Porsche just looked older
right.
versus
Right.
an
Yeah,
NSX.
NSX was like
I was
crazy,
like,
right?
Yeah. Right.
My dad also drove it like Thursdays were his day off and the weekends, and I got it with 55,000 miles on it.
Man.
About 10 years ago.
Oh my God,
Less
this is
than
the
that.
same. This is
Yeah.
the same. Oh my God, this is a
Wow.
crazy story.
My
That's
dad
insane.
went to an Acura dealer to laugh at a $20,000 Japanese car and then drove home in one because he was so impressed. With it. So we actually bought an Integra.
What car was that?
Integra.
Oh.
Well, he went because I remember I
The
was
first gen?
Oh yeah.
This
No,
boxy one. The boxy one.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
pop-up headlight.
Yeah.
No, what happened was I read not MotorTrend obviously, but I read like Car Driver or something, and they're like these Acuras are the best cars, and I'm telling my dad, and he's like 20,000 for a Japanese car? Are you crazy? And my dad owns Z's, he loved Japanese cars, but he's just like that was too much money.
Right.
So I dragged him to look at a Legend, and he liked it, and then there was an Integra, and I remember it had dealer installed leather.
Oh.
And he's
fancy.
like, it was $13,000 and 113 horsepower, and he just bought it. He was like, this is awesome, because he liked small little zippy cars.
What year was that? What year was that?
Oh, 86.
Okay, yeah.
Did you get to
11.
drive the car? You would have
Not
been
often. No, so like I would get to drive it every once in a while. Not until I was in college, and then he'd let me drive it a little bit more. But like not when I was 16. That's for
I had
sure.
to sign he drew up a contract that said I couldn't drive it, and he didn't let me drive until I was close to 30.
So
Are
my
you
dad
serious?
also did this crazy thing where he had a little post-it note next to the odometer, and he'd write down the odometer
What?
thing, right? So like I couldn't even freaking sneak it out. You know.
Oh my god.
You know, it was really crazy. Like I don't know why. I think he had this little notepad that he would write down the odometer reading every time he filled up with gas. This is a weird engineering thing.
Yeah. Frank does that.
So he had a small little notepad that had the odometer reading and then how much gas he put in, and how much it costs. Right. It was weird.
I do that. I do that now. With the
My
Land
dad
Cruiser.
did not do that. No. I mean, my dad. I remember he taught me to drive when I was 10. I was tall, and he goes, "My dad taught me to drive when I was 12. I've never had an accident. I think the earlier you learn to drive, the better."
Right.
And so when I was 10, we had a Buick wagon, and he'd take me on dirt roads, and I'd just drive around.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So who taught you how to drive? Your dad?
Yeah, my dad. Yeah. What are we driving? Oh, it was that Mercedes turbo diesel is slow as shit. You know, so
very slow.
that's what I took my my driver's test in.
That was the next question. Okay, and then Manuel, who taught you to drive?
Manuel. So he bought a Golf for my sister.
And you bought a manual because you'll never get stuck at a party not knowing how to drive yourself home. That's when he taught my sister. He taught all of us.
Interesting.
Like
I think it was just because it was cheaper.
Oh, okay.
So my sister had that, and I learned to drive stick on that. So yeah.
Oh, he didn't teach you or
I think
your sister's a lot older.
She's 10 years older. So it was her boyfriend taught me how to drive that car.
Interesting.
I was like 15, and I learned how to drive stick.
My dad had a Nissan Stanza wagon, and he took me to the bottom of a hill, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to go stand on the top of the hill, and you're going to get this thing up the hill." And because it was like for his business, it was just like a junky thing,
right?
And I destroyed that transmission, but I got up. You know, I was like 13.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What does your sister think of your whole career arc thing?
Both my sisters. I think my oldest sister, because she went to Hong Kong in '88. She was like a second runner-up in Miss Chinatown in San Francisco, right?
Oh, wow, okay.
So she won this trip to Hong Kong, and then she started modeling there. She was modeling for a long time, right?
So looks runs in your family.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. And she then became a TV host on English speaking on TV Pearl, the English channel,
kidding.
right? So she hosted these music shows and VJ shows and stuff like that. Right, so that was already a path laid out.
There's a good chance I probably was watching her when I go to Hong Kong.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
And then she went over to ATV. Then she was on the English channel there. You know, so she was.
What did your folks think of her doing that?
I think they liked it. I know she just wanted to get away from home.
Okay.
Be as far away from home as possible. But I think they liked it. She would send home all tapes from all the shows on PAL, PAL system.
Right.
There's the difference between NTSC and PAL, right?
Right.
So we had a whole PAL set up in the house to watch all her stuff. She would send those tapes home. She was sending all the magazine clippings home, all that stuff. So I think my mom liked it. I'm not sure what my dad thought.
Okay.
I think he was worried because of female and entertainment and modeling, all that. So it could be dangerous.
Makes a lot of money. I mean,
Sure. But yeah, I think they were proud of her. And then my other sister did what my parents wanted, which is she went to Wharton Business School, got an MBA, did all that, right?
Right.
So
What
that was
does she do
sister
now?
that has the golf, right? Now she's she writes, she's a writer, and she
They must be very disappointed.
well, we all got into creative stuff, which is interesting, like in the end, right? But
But you're the kid, but you're the youngest.
yeah, I'm the youngest. by
And
a
were they
lot.
just were they like eye rolling, and now they're like, he's.
So yeah, I think my oldest sister is kind of saw it, My middle sister is maybe more confused by it, but understands it now. I mean, they all accept it, of course.
Sure.
Right?
Well,
This 20-something years
I was
in
gonna
now.
say, you've been doing it long enough that it's not a fluke.
Yeah. So I think the major challenge was just getting my dad to accept it. And once my name started hitting Chinese newspapers, and then all their friends started talking about me and all that stuff, then it was like, okay, they're in.
So when did you realize that you were had made it because you must, that first film getting 7,000
When did you
bucks.
realize you weren't going to be an architect?
Yeah.
I would say. Okay, so I did Gen X Cops. Mm-hmm. So this is a new film company called Media Asia at the time. They're trying to do something new. They're trying to take young talent and do big budget action movies, right? And so I was a supporting actor in Gen X Cops. Then the next movie they did called Purple Storm, I was the lead in it. And it was a big, huge action movie, right? And so from that moment, I realized, okay, I think I made it. I'm a star of an action movie.
Oh, so that early.
Right. So it was like the third year in. It was maybe second or third year in when that came out.
Right.
And kind of the impact it had. Then I realized, okay, I'm in here. I'm in Flynn, and I don't think I'm going back.
Okay.
And then and then career got busy. I was doing 6-7 movies a year. I did almost 70 movies in 20 years.
That's a lot. That's a lot of movies. Wow.
When was the
That's
first?
like Nick Cage. That's
when was the first movie?
Yeah, and I had some questionable ones in there, like Nick. Yeah.
When was the first movie where you actually put your martial arts stuff on display?
So it wasn't until much, much later, because again, I was
hid it.
Yeah, I hid it for a little bit. And because I got this, because Jackie said one thing to me, he's like, I want to do movies like Robert De Niro. I want to act too, but nobody's going to finance a movie like that for me, right?
Right.
And so that really stuck with me. And also seeing him and all the pain that he was in from all the injuries, I was like,
he did crazy stunt. I mean,
he's broken everything in his body.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I was like, I don't want to end up like that, because I did this movie with him called 80 Days Around the World. It was a Western movie.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I've seen,
so I have a small part in it, but in that time, I think he had slip disc in his back, and like he could fight like crazy, but like somebody had to help him get out of the chair and help him sit down because his crushed disc in his back. Moved really well still, but I was like, I don't want to end up like that.
Right.
I really don't want to end up like that. So if I have the opportunity to do drama and do anything else, I'll do that. And so I got known for doing kind of noirish action stuff, but not kung fu stuff. And I actually only did 1 or 2 projects. One was Tai Chi Hero, Tai Chi Zero, which is I produced. I helped produce that. And then there's another movie, I forgot the English name of it, where there was martial arts fighting in it, but that was it. And then mostly everything was gunplay, running around, that kind of action.
How to talk about that? When did you? Because I'm sure you didn't grow up with like a lot of guns and
no, not all, never.
Right. So then you had to pick that up because that's a huge part of any Hong Kong action.
And this is like why I say like the martial arts background like helped me with a lot of things, like just learning things, and wushu especially, because it's all about form, right? And you have to be very precise. So like picking up anything that was physical for me. So switching over to other martial arts, like I did Muay Thai. I still do Muay Thai now for like 15 years, right?
That's dangerous.
And because I wanted to learn something effective, right?
I was going to say the scariest human being I know is like Muay Thai,
right?
And he's like he's deadly.
And it's very simple. It's a very simple martial art, but it's very effective, right? But Muay Thai guy may not be able to do movie choreography very well, right? Because
it's knees and elbows.
It's just 8 things that you're doing, right? And you're not doing fancy moves and all that kind of stuff.
Smashing people in the skull.
But I was able to transfer that over. And so then when I learned to shoot, I did this movie called Hit Team, and I play like a SWAT team guy. So we did like 6 weeks of training with like full gear, full M4s, like all that stuff, right? And I just loved it. Like I fell in love with it. 'Cause it was like,
who's training you?
We had a guy that trains the SDU teams, like all those Michael Wong SDU movies. Like that guy was training us.
So you're learning Hong Kong action movie like gunplay from a guy who's like ex-military or police,
SWAT team
in
guy,
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
It's not like over here. I mean, that's kind of a fantasy, because over here, like we would just go and you'd go to some counterterrorism school and screw around. That's awesome. So you're like MP5s and like
Glock MP5s, all that stuff. It was cool. And like we would train with the full bulletproof vest on, with the full like level 4.
And let me ask you a question, because I've heard actors since the beginning of time say, we did all this military training. Like how? What do you mean? Is it training? Like,
so we would go. They would put us in like a boot camp type of thing, right? And so you'd have like maybe it was like 4 to 5 weeks of doing that.
Like what's a day?
Early in the morning.
You wake up at what time?
You arrive at like 7 in the morning.
Okay.
And then you go to this. Like, if it's a shooting day, you're learning just shooting stuff. But other stuff was training. Other stuff was like formation, how to move in formation.
But are they abusing you? Or are they? Like,
not necessarily. No. Like we're doing all that stuff. We're doing the running. We're doing We're doing the hill climbs. We're doing all that stuff.
You're a maggot.
But we're doing all this stuff that builds like chemistry. But not necessarily like they're not calling you a maggot and all that stuff and like that. We're not being treated like that.
I was always curious.
No.
Like, we went to boot camp.
I don't know if that's really necessary, right? Like, because that's all for like. I understand that for military. It's about breaking their spirit so that you listen and then you follow. So. Right. I would definitely say a couple of the actors I were with could have used that, right? But because of my martial arts background, I listen. I think that's also why the car racing came really quickly to me, is because it's like. I take instruction, and I immediately execute it. That's like my main goal.
That's interesting, because I've talked to a lot of instructors, and they're like the worst people to coach in race cars are successful males. So because they won't listen. They think
I did the Ferrari Challenge School, right?
Oh yeah.
And these guys in the class, like all of them are CEOs of companies, right? And they cannot take instruction because they're not used to that, right? And there was this other Asian kid in the class, and me and him were like the top 3 fastest drivers in the class. And I go, you know how we're better? Because our parents used to yell at us all the time, and we could take it, right? And like these guys, they can't take somebody like telling them what to do.
I'll never forget. I had I won't name his name. Just I don't want to come back to him. I'm like, who's the worst you've ever had? And he's like Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott. He's just
a football player.
Yeah. He's got like 4 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah. When they're physically talented or something, they're not going to want to listen.
He's like just literally incapable of listening. And I go, who's the best? He goes, any woman, any female.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
student.
Yes.
He's like the jump from like, knowing nothing to being really good. Oh, women just...
Yeah, they listen. They listen.
It's like the more successful the man, the worse they are. So it's interesting that that's comes from the martial arts training.
So you learn the gunplay, you do those kinds of movies. I haven't gone through. I'd actually tried to go through as many of the trailers because I didn't have time to watch everything. But how many? When did you start doing like the period, the old school, like the Chinese?
So I did it. Yeah, so I did one movie called The Banquet with this director Feng Xiaogang. And so that was it was right after Crouching Tiger, so a lot of Chinese directors were trying to like do the next one.
Right.
And so it was a period piece like that based on Macbeth, the story of Macbeth. Zhang Zi was the main actress in it. Slightly different adjusted storyline because she was the lead actress in it. They didn't make it about Lady Macbeth. They made it about the girl, the daughter. And so, but very, very interesting. I did a bit of martial arts in that. I would say there's 3 fight scenes in that. But period style on wires, all that kind of stuff. So I got a chance to work with Yuen Ping, who did, Matrix and all that.
Sure.
And got a chance to feel his style, which is very cool. It's very beautiful, very poetic.
Do you like that better than like the real martial arts stuff, like the Jackie Chan style versus the wires versus the gunplay?
I wouldn't say I like any better. I would say it depends on what story you're trying to tell, right? And I think there is room for that beautiful stuff. And then if you're doing a John Wick thing, of course, like that's what you want to do. You want to do tactical, real-world fighting, right? But when you're trying to tell a poetic story and you're using the body, because you look at it and you look at that fighting, it's like, that doesn't look like real fighting. But it's like telling a story. It's like dance, right? Like a ballet, right? And so you're trying to execute martial arts moves and telling a story with it as well. So you're using your body as an instrument to tell the story, right? Okay. And so the gowns that you're wearing, all this stuff is all part of it, and the weapons, everything is all part of it. Like the one weapon I used in that movie was a dagger that was my dagger, but it's tied to the end of a rope and became a rope dagger, right? A rope. What's it called?
I don't. Yeah.
That's so that was his weapon, and it was this really kind of beautiful way it was shot and told this different story, right? So it's not about hardcore kicking ass, right? That's like if you're doing a Navy SEAL story, like that's what I would want to do, right? But in this situation, like that's what I think is what you do. You're trying to tell a beautiful story that's not necessarily about the martial arts, but it's tied into that.
Right.
Was it weird, like being a big Hong Kong star and then coming home and being relatively anonymous?
I kind of welcomed it at first because like it was hard for me to get around in Asia. Like, it still is, right? But like after, especially having a kid, like I couldn't go to a park to take my kid to a park because everybody wants to take a camera phone picture, all that kind of stuff.
And for the people listening, I mean, you're huge in China. I mean, you're like
huge and huge in Hong Kong. But how about in China? Like, did you do a lot of media touring?
So like
China?
So I started working in China first, like 10 years, and then after about 10 years, the China film industry started to grow, right? And so when they first started, they poached a lot of Hong Kong talent to help them build the industry because they didn't know how to make commercial films per se, right? They had the Zhang Yimous and all that stuff, but it was art house films. They didn't know how to create an industry, right? And so they brought a lot of talent, directors, choreographers, producers, line producers, all that stuff to teach them how to do it. And then that came with that stars also because they didn't have established stars. So I was already an established star in Hong Kong. People knew me in China. So I started doing Chinese films in Mandarin. Right. And so that's The Banquet was that one of those, in 2004, I think it was, I went to that. And then when that market started to blow up, I started doing a lot more Mandarin films in China. So yes, very well known in China also. So it's like, I can't really just walk out on the street. It's not easy for me to do that.
Right.
But I'm also not the kind of guy that like carries a crew with me either.
Right.
So like my life really there is like work, hotel, work, hotel, work, hotel, work, house, work, house, work, house. I'm very insular, and I had a driver, I had all this stuff to just make my life easier.
Right.
Sure.
But then here, but half of me is American, half of me is like a regular dude, right? So coming back here was nice to be able to just do all the stuff. I drive myself to places, take my kid to a park.
Go to Costco.
Yeah, go to Costco, go shopping. Like I would still do that in Hong Kong, but it was hard. It was really hard.
But LA is also like, I have some friends.
Yeah, people don't give a shit.
Pretty famous, and like they go around just fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've been with like there's guys like Leno and Seinfeld. Let's say they actually can't go anywhere and do anything.
Yes.
That's problematic. But I have other friends that are A-list, but they can still.
Most people can get by New York. Yeah, definitely. Right.
New York,
I was in the Bay Area. No one cared. No one cared. Right.
Well, New York, no one actually cares. They really don't care.
You still keep a house somewhere in Asia?
Yeah, I have a place in Asia, but I kind of not really so much anymore. But yeah, I have a plus spot there. Okay. And then
Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, yeah, in Hong Kong. Yeah. Hong Kong was always my base. So when I was working in China, I would still come back to Hong Kong, right?
So do they now not call on like Hong Kong movie stars as much because they've built up this industry and they have their own sort of homegrown talent?
I would say there's not as much new talent from Hong Kong going to China, but the established people are still working there. You know,
then
like Andy Lau's, the Leon Lai's, like those people are still working in China.
There's
still box office draw. They still have box office draw, right?
Where's the spiritual home of China, not Hong Kong cinema? Is it Beijing?
I would say it's mostly Beijing. There's also Shanghai, right? It's kind of like New York and LA. There's kind of a split, right? But it wouldn't be like New York and LA is like commercial films, and then indie stuff is in New York, right? It's not like that. It's just like there's Beijing and there's Shanghai, right? They do their individual film festivals. They do their individual stuff there. But then there's places like Qingdao that opened a huge studio over there. But that's more just to film at, not necessarily as a mecca. Yeah.
So let's go.
Well, have you done a car film?
I was going to say, yeah.
Have you done one
Sung, but yeah.
Right.
Well, I haven't, and I've really wanted to. We tried to do a racing movie in China, but just like budget-wise, it's too hard to do racing movies. My favorite movie that I ever done, One Night in Bangkok, has I'm not involved in the scene, but it's the really cool R32 Skyline race scene in it through Hong Kong, which is cool. But I've never actually done a driving movie.
What is the best Hong Kong, not China, Hong Kong movie featuring cars?
Oh, God. Well, there's a Hong Kong version of Initial D. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was done with Hong Kong actors. That was kind of cool. It was weird, though, to see that in Cantonese versus Japanese, right? And see it all transferred over.
It's like watching The Departed in English.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's exactly like that. But I would have to say...
Good question.
What is
Partially because I want to go... I'll set up while you think about it.
There's a Jackie Chan movie.
Okay. He's got Evo
Lightning
He loves cars.
Yes, he's a huge guy, and he was sponsored by Mitsubishi. I think he's still sponsored by Mitsubishi, so he has a ton of Evos.
Right.
What was the name of that movie?
Well, as you think about it, Hong Kong has this crazy car culture, and it's literally crazy because they can gray market like anything. It was former British colony. You can bring cars over. You got right-hand drive. You got left-hand drive. You got Ferrari. You got Rolls-Royce. The city itself is like the size of a postage stamp.
It's like Oakland and San Francisco, that part of the Bay Area, that centralized, that small.
And it's so expensive to own a car, to park a car.
150% tax.
Yeah, and yet you'll go, the last time I was out there, I saw a 599 on the street, with a 599 license plate, which the license...
Dude, that must have cost more than the car.
The license plate probably costs more than the car, right?
That's okay. Well, that's like Japan. Okay, so the number one market for V12 Lamborghinis is America. Right. Number two is Japan.
Oh yeah,
and the speed limit's 70.
Yes. Well, that's the thing.
And it's again, I think it's like a 400% tax or something in Japan.
There is literally no place to drive though in Hong Kong. Yes. That's the thing though. It's
right. No, that's what I'm just.
There's speed cameras every couple kilometers, right? And there's a couple roads, right, that people do hit, but that's about it. And that's why I never really, really got into car stuff there.
Right.
I had really weird cars there. I had a Mazda Friendly wagon. I mean, it was like
it's a box.
Bus, right?
Yes,
a box.
Yes, because you want to maximize.
My wife called it a toaster oven. Right. And then I had a Range Rover for a while. That was too big to drive around Hong Kong. It was crazy. Right. And then my best car for Hong Kong was an A4 wagon, right? But I didn't really get into it there because there's no place to work on cars. I did have a 61 Jaguar E-Type that it was my dream car, so I got that there. Yes. Wow. That's Series 1.5 with the glass.
Had or still have?
Now my physician has it. He bought it off me when I left. But I tried to work on it, and so hot working in Hong Kong. It was sweating, 90% humidity, 99 degrees out there, and it was terrible. I had a garage in my house, but I couldn't work on it. I couldn't do anything, so I just didn't. I had that. I had a. This was funny. I had a kit car Cobra in Hong Kong. Yeah. And that thing, I got it because it was relatively cheap. It was I brought it over from England. A friend of mine imported from England for $45,000 or something like that. But I just want to have a V8 in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
And
a loud V8.
I'd rumble through Central at night. It was the awesomest sound in the world. Just the sound of the V8 off the buildings, right? But that thing attracted so much attention, and I'm not that kind of guy, right?
Right.
And everybody would be looking at the car, and then they see who's driving it, and then it was I gotta get rid of this thing. It was attracting way too much attention, so I got rid of it.
That's funny. But the E-Type was a coupe? Or?
Yeah, coupe. Okay. Coupe was always I always loved the coupe. I always loved the line. It was my dream car, and I got it. It was gray with a red interior.
Pretty cool.
That's my. So I just got to shout out.
Just real quick for everyone listening, the 1.5 is the one to get of the E-types.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
the 4.2 motor, but with
one's
the glass
3.8,
headlights.
and it's got the messed up floor. 1.2 they fixed it, or 1.5 they fixed everything.
I come from a huge family that came from Hong Kong on both. So like 8 brothers and sisters on my mom's side, and like 5 on my dad's side, and they're all like. Some of them are super car guys, like my cousins. My uncle Kevin, who was the youngest on my mom's side, is going to watch this thing because he's a huge fan. His daughters, they lost their mind when and they're in their 20s. They're like, "Oh my God, you're talking to Daddy Will." I was like, "Yeah, what do you want me to ask him? Like, will he marry me?" I'm like, "He's married already." But Uncle Kay, Monique, and Chloe, shout out,
Monique, Chloe.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. they're gonna die. I'm gonna cut that clip for him. But my Uncle Kevin in particular is gonna lose his mind because he's a big car guy. I have fond memories of him driving me around Central in his Porsche, which he resents greatly selling. But it made a huge impression on me, the car culture there. Not just the fancy stuff, like
Everything, yeah.
I have really fond memories of like the smell of a Hong Kong taxi cab.
Yeah.
And getting into one when it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity into like that frigid
ice box.
AC, and they don't have headrests in the old ones.
Yes.
And you watch them put the sign down, and you go.
You see the guy playing with his mole on his neck. Right?
beaded car seat cover, right?
So, by the way, at the most recent JCCS, somebody had one there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would love to bring one here, but they're all LPG. They're all
the new ones are all LPG.
They're all LPG, liquid propane.
But the one the guy had, I think it was a diesel. Yeah. So
there was a dude at the Cars and I think it was a Toyota. It was a Tokyo cab, but he had like a real like with the
doilies.
Not only the doilies, but the weird automatic door,
right?
Which is like a lever. You know?
Don't
slam
never
it.
slam
Never
it.
slam it.
You want the worst stink guy from the most polite people on earth? Slam a Tokyo cab door.
Yep.
Sorry, but it was rad because it was that weird Nissan one.
Right. It was still waiting on your best car movie, Hong Kong car movie.
Oh.
So I think that was the one night in Hong Kong because I didn't drive it. But those R32s are in there. There's a race chase scene in there.
Before you retire, you have to do.
I'm trying to do a car movie. I really want to do a car movie.
You and Sung.
You got to do the bullet.
How can
of
that
Hong Kong
not?
cinema.
How can forget about Hong Kong? I mean, you and Sung do like a big U.S. car movie.
We should. We've talked about it. We've talked about it. Yeah,
I mean,
we're trying to figure it out. I'm kind of waiting for him to get done with the Fast and Furious stuff. And then we'll
one
move.
day.
So how did you meet?
Fast and Furious 15.
Yeah.
Hey, billions of dollars. Why not? But how did you meet Sung?
So I met Sung through this magazine called Giant Robot. I don't know if you guys heard of that, right?
Yes.
So Eric Nakamura.
Yes.
Really, I was a fan of the magazine when it was a fanzine, and then I wrote to them and asked them if they, wanted to have somebody write. It must have been 95 or 96. Right, because I saw the first zine with the sleeping sumo wrestler on the cover, and I was in a shop. I was actually working for an architect. I was going to this site to measure stuff, and I saw in the bookstore. I saw it there, and I'm like, Giant Robot and a sumo wrestler. I'm like, this is something speaking to me, right?
Yeah.
So I pick it up, and I'm like, it's a punk rock fanzine. I was into punk, or I was a skater. And it was put on by Asian guys. Made by Asian guys. I was like, holy shit, this is for me. And they're talking about martial arts and everything. And I was like, whoa, this is really for me. So I wrote to them going, hey, I know a lot about martial arts and martial arts movies and blah, blah, blah. If you want me to correspond. This is before I went to Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And then I met Martin Wong, who is one of the co-founders, editors, right? In New York, we went to go see Tokyo Shock Boys in New York. This is like before, what's the Johnny Knoxville show? Jackass.
Yeah. Okay.
These guys from Tokyo would do this thing, live performance like that. So I went to see it with him. We became friends. And then I went to Hong Kong 97. My first article for them was about the rave party I went to in the Hanover. And so from that point on, 97, I wrote for every single issue until they ended. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was their Hong Kong correspondent because they talked a lot about Hong Kong film, right?
Sure.
So I was their Hong Kong correspondent. So I would write from the Hong Kong Film Awards. I would be the inside guy. I would interview all the up-and-coming actors, all that stuff.
Wait, back up though. You said
Sung was part of that crew. Of
Better Luck
people.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. And he knew all them. So I met him on Sawtelle one day, hanging out, whatever. And then we exchanged emails. And then there was times where I thought okay, I can get some financing and do like an Asian American movie, right? And so I reach out to Sung and hey, what do you know? What do you have going on here? So we had like small interactions over the years. And then it wasn't until I moved back here that we started to see each other more. And it was when I reached out to him when I saw the Fugazi. I was like, hey, that's an awesome build. Like, how did you do that? Because I moved back and I want to get back into car stuff, right? And so I was like, tell me how it worked. Like, how did you get from there to SEMA, right?
Right.
And so then I was like, I've always loved 510s, and it was a Nissan thing and Datsun thing, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to do a 510. So I built this 510 with Troy Ermish, the 510 guy, right? And we brought it to SEMA the next couple of years. But so it was through that friendship that we the cars, because I knew he was in Fast and Furious, but I wasn't sure if he really was a car guy. And when I saw the Fuguzi, I was like, oh, he is. And
Yeah,
so then,
he really is.
Yeah, and then we bonded over that.
Come on, you were like, once you saw his minivan, how much he loves a minivan.
That was pathetic and embarrassing.
You pull his car guy cred.
Yeah.
It gets 50-some miles per gallon. Come on.
I don't care. I mean, I get more than that in an 800-some horsepower. It just sucks.
Just as an aside, again, and this
yeah.
is like Daniel's the way more handsome and successful version of myself. I was in love with Giant Robot over a similar time period. I started working in magazines in 2001, and part of that is I sent Eric, I just slid the whole envelope of my clippings from this Import Racer car magazine I was working at in Orange County. I was like, I'd love to work with you guys, and I heard nothing back. But that's fine.
He's very particular person.
Yes.
Very particular person.
I'm sure he didn't want...
I remember Giant Robot, but like...
He didn't want anything to do with the car
I think he didn't
side.
want the Ricer scene stuff involved.
100%, because that was already well documented.
So wait,
whatever.
go back to... This is interesting. What
Have you seen the doc, by the way?
I have not.
Oh, you should see it. It's on YouTube for free.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
punk rock, and we're about the same age.
Yes.
What punk were you into?
Operation Ivy was my favorite.
Oh, there
right?
it is.
But like Minor Threat,
Okay.
Fugazi, like all that stuff, because
yeah.
I lived like 20 minutes from the Gilman. I don't know if you know that place, right?
My band used to headline Gilman Street.
Oh, really? Okay. What was the name of your band?
Adjective Noun. And I say used to. We did it, I think, once or twice. But anyways, we were this would have been like late 90s, not even late 90s, like mid 90s. We were this obscure, like, we were really an art project
Right.
that kind of pretended to be a band.
Right.
But we just made fun of punk rock. But we
Right.
would,
Okay.
but it was great. We only had one song. We just play it like 15 times. It was a 37-second song. We changed the lyrics. So it'd be like, this song's about the Amazon rainforest and how, McDonald's is trying to cut it down and you get mad at McDonald's. Well, let me tell you something. The Amazon rainforest is just fascist capitalism.
Right.
The big trees block out the light for the little plants. The strong survive and the weak die. And McDonald's is trying to right that wrong and you're mad at them. Well, F you, F the rainforest, cut that down. Amazon rainforest sucks. And it was just always something sucks.
The same song.
Yeah, same song. And it was, and then it was adjective noun because all punk bands are Operation Ivy, Capitalist Casualties, Dead Kennedys.
Right.
Why waste time thinking of a name when you can be smashing the system?
Right.
And why waste time writing more than one song when you can just have one song? And it's all punk sounds like anyways. But yes,
boy.
I know.
So actually, it's interesting because I roadied for my friend, my best friend's older brother, who was in a band that played at the Gilman, right?
What?
They were called Tommy Rot.
Nah,
They're like
don't.
late 80s, early 90s, right?
Okay.
And so, but that's all my car guy friends too. Like that's how I got all my car influences.
My friends I go to Gilman Street with was car guys.
Yeah, so that guy had a 2002 TII, right? And his little brother, my best friend Ian, who built this S800 with me, he had a TR6. That was his high school car, Triumph TR6, right? The other guy had a GTV, Alfa Romeo GTV. So we're like,
right.
It was like punk cars, skating, like all that stuff. All
Very
together.
Bay Area. Those
super,
type of cars. Like,
super.
When I think of the BMW 2002, I think of San Francisco.
Yeah, I was embarrassed because I had an E30. That was my first car. It was the E33 18i. At the time, it wasn't as cool as those cars, right? Now the E30 is like super cool, right? But
so that's the car you had driving around in high school.
Yep, that was my first
car you took to Oregon.
Yep, my dad thought he was going to get me a 240 sedan.
Safe,
because it's safe. I was like, hey Dad, I saw this 318. It's like it's $1,000 cheaper than the Volvo. And it's a BMW, right? And then when I told him the value for dollar thing, he got into it. So we ended up with this 318 E30 84.
Nice.
That was my.
Did you drive a lot up there in Eugene, right?
Yeah, a little bit, quite a bit, right? Okay. And then 2 years into, well,
you have to.
That was the first time I modded a car, so I changed the suspension out, KYB suspension, lowered it, blah, 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 like not too much, an inch. I did that stupid thing. I bought those Anza exhaust tips and welded those on,
awesome. Super cool.
double tips.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like 2 years into
That's
it.
5 horsepower.
Yes, yeah.
Less.
And I think mine were like from the San Jose flea market, which are not even real Anza ones. So anyway, Oregon, I think 2 years into it, then I traded that car in for a truck. So I had a Toyota truck after that with an extra cab so I could go snowboarding.
What year? Truck?
I want to say 90?
Okay.
So it was like between what they called it, the SR5 and the Tacoma. It was between that. It didn't have any name on it.
Truck.
Well,
It was a
it
Toyota
was
truck.
that was still the global Hilux.
Yeah.
Tacoma.
But
it had
truck.
it had the little side door, the extra door.
Yeah. Flip down seat.
And I had the camper pack, so it looked like a 4Runner, but it wasn't a 4Runner.
Right.
You know, I throw my snowboard in that and do snowboarding and all that. So,
Big snowboarder too, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all the way through Hong Kong, we talked a little bit about that. You're back here now. What are you driving?
So, what am I driving? Okay. My daily is a Chevy Colorado Bison. But actually, my daily is a 2019 e-Golf. Because it's my R1 EV vehicle right now, so I just zip around town in that thing.
80 miles range, right?
It actually gets 110.
Okay.
But for some reason, when I charge it, it says 125, so I get a little bit more. But that drops quickly.
Yeah. But you're getting rid of the first of all.
I'm getting rid of the truck for what you have.
A Rivian.
I thought about it for a long time because I use that truck to haul my Airstream to all the racetracks.
Right.
So I love sleeping at the track, and I love hauling that thing around. The race car gets delivered with the race team, so I don't have to do anything about that. And even I race a vintage 510 also, and that gets to the Troy Ermish brings it to the track also. So I haul this RV around, right? So I wanted to be able to haul around and be able to gas up and go to these places. So I asked you all these questions about it. It was enough to. Can you travel with it? And you said, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm in.
How dare you?
But now I'm seeing all you guys posting about these broken EV chargers. I'm like, shit, man.
Well, I mean, it's not perfect. It'll get better. But also, I mean, we should get him in touch with Derek Powell, who's been towing his Cayman GT4. He's been towing with a Rivian.
Okay.
We loaned him our Rivian to try out towing over the grapevine. I think he did a track day at
it was fun.
Buttonwillow or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
but that Buttonwillow, you don't have to charge to get there, right?
No. To get back, you do.
Yeah, sure.
And there's they're for Buttonwillow. They're in charge. They built a bunch of chargers out there because there's a lot of people doing Tesla. Sort of.
I've seen them out there.
And what's cool is Go Fast Camper. They're about to release a pop-up rooftop thing for the R1T, which is like it's 500 pounds lighter than any other pop-up camper.
Oh, whoa!
It's made in Montana, and
it goes over the bed.
It goes over the bed, but also over the roof a little bit.
So you have to have a higher rack then, right?
No, I'll show you.
Okay,
it's pretty slick. Yeah. It's pretty slick. But the cool thing about it is you don't need a ladder because you climb in through the tailgate and go up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so it incorporates the tailgate into it. So
no, that's just a way to get in.
Okay.
It's pretty wild. It's really high quality.
We know the guy. Was that Wes Seiler?
Wes is doing it, but like it weighs less than 300 pounds, whereas most rooftop tents are like 800 pounds.
Yes.
And kind of really poorly made. And this is
I have one.
Yeah. This is incredible.
500-pound one. Yeah, it's crazy.
This is incredibly well made. Anyways, but so they're gonna. I have some renderings on my phone.
Yeah, that's on the Bison.
What's that?
That tent that you have is on
it's on the Bison. Yeah, it's one of those iCamper ones.
Handling must be great.
Yeah, it's like
that's why you'll dig the Rivian because it has all the off-road capability.
And the weight's down mostly on the bottom.
Yeah, and
air suspension,
and it hits 60 miles an hour
self-leveling.
in like 3.2 seconds.
Yes.
Fast than all your race cars.
That four-cylinder diesel is not fast at all. No.
So you're kind of the model for people who are. You got an EV for zipping around town to get you through traffic because you can ride in the carpool lane. But your passion is internal combustion. Racing.
Like I like vintage cars. So should I go through those?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
So I have that 510 that I built for SEMA. I have the S800 that I built for SEMA. Also, I have a '61 Lincoln Continental. I have my dad's 911. I have a 2018 GT3 Touring. So
where are you keeping all these cars?
So that's the problem. Is I moved here in August, so it's not been that long, and so I had a garage in the Bay Area for my cars. I did not arrange that down here, and now I'm also realizing like warehouse space is like really expensive down here.
We know this guy Farah.
Matt Farah.
He can help you out.
But it's expensive. His place,
it is expensive.
So that's the thing. Yeah. So like
he's not doing it for charity.
Yeah, I know that. I've clearly seen it. I've explored that. I've researched it. So to get something cheap here, it's like an hour or so away. And if I do that, I'm never going to switch out my cars. So I don't know what to do. So I've just left most of them up there. I have the GT3 down here. And my wife, I just got a 2023 Z for my wife. Because the Z was her dream car in high school.
Interesting.
So she had a 350Z in Hong Kong that was matte black that I got for her then. And then now we got the 2023Z, and she's going to track that.
Okay.
We had a cool moment the other night. We had Tomura-san came out and signed your Z.
Yeah,
Father of the
that was
Z.
kind of crazy.
And then he really wanted to drive the Rivian.
Right.
So, and it was hysterical because you were, thinking about it, and you hopped in the back, and it's like pouring rain. And I won't name the street in case, But anyways, we're on a street. You should not be going fast. And he just nails it up to 80.
Yeah.
And this, again, farther the GTR. And he's just looking at me like, whoa, fast. I was like, yeah.
I was supposed to be at that dinner when that happened.
I know.
Yes, you missed out. It was a great meal, first of all.
That was
shout
good.
out to,
To Sang.
That was awesome.
Yeah, we went to Father's office, and it was a good time. Sean Lee.
Yep,
Good,
Sean Lee.
Super fun time.
So let me ask a personal question. Do you like driving your dad's Porsche?
So after I moved back, I took it over and I drove it around a lot. And like compared to my 510, it wasn't as fun. So I took it and I got the Steve Wong chip, and I lowered it at 1 inch to like European spec. And what I did the cat delete. Can I say that?
Yeah, sure.
I did the cat delete on
It's
it.
over
So it's
25 years
right.
old.
So it's a little bit louder.
But it's 88?
88. So it's fun now.
Yeah. I was just saying.
You like shifting it?
Not really. The shifter is kind of the
4-speed?
No, 5-speed.
You go 5-speed?
5-speed,
Yeah.
but it's long.
It's long. Yeah, just a 3,000 RPM drop. But by the
Yeah.
time you put the clutch in and
Yes,
get into the next gear. It's,
So I drove, buddy of mine had, I think it was an 87, but he chipped it.
Right.
And it was, and he actually did change out. He made a short throw
Short
shifter.
shift.
It still
Right.
dropped, but it was much better.
So I think that's probably the next thing I'm going to do. But I was really on the fence about like, do I keep it pristine like my dad left it, or do I? But I was like, I'm not really driving anymore, right?
Right.
So I want to make it a little bit more fun. So that chip was nice. It was a little bump.
Yeah.
And the sound is much better, so I just have much more fun cruising around in it than I did before. So I do enjoy driving.
The other thing too is, I've driven enough, 60s, 70s, 80s, 911. They're just by modern standards. The steering is incredible.
steering's incredible.
It's great.
Steering
I
is
love that.
incredible.
Suspension's incredible.
I changed the wheel to a deeper dish that's closer to me. Like I always felt like it was a little bit further away.
Yeah,
So I changed it to one that's closer to me, and I feel like I have much better control over it now, right? Instead of like reaching out.
But it's just, unless you really, go
wheel,
like the
use it.
Gunther Works way, it's never going to be a great driving experience.
The regular Fuchs it came with.
you didn't do a Nardi like a
the wheel. Oh no, it's a Renown. Like it's actually Illist, that company Illist. Like
okay.
And they did a collab, and I put that on there.
Was it Alcantara wrapped?
Yeah, Alcantara wrapped.
Yeah, siding notch and the thing.
Yes, yeah. So I love it more. Like the deep dish is really nice because I can keep it at a racing position and
And people will be able to see this car.
Yes, it's going to be at the Peterson for a whole year there.
Yeah.
Right? So that was cool that they reached out and asked for it. Did we complete that story? No, we didn't.
No.
So they reached out because they're going to do 75 years of Porsche
in California
at Peterson. Yeah, in California.
And they were,
right.
and it was really. I mean, they were very upfront about it. They're like, we're looking for, California stories, and we don't just want a bunch of old white guys' cars.
Right.
They call me. Oh, because I don't talk about mine too much.
Yeah. Well, Daniel's a little bit more
I know.
interesting
That's
than you.
fine.
But now after this comes out and that story comes out, they might put them right next to each other, right?
I mean, do you want your car in a museum for a year?
Free, look, I
that's
know
the thing.
we know why Daniel's doing it. Free garage for a year.
That was the thing. Is like you have to give it up for a year. But I'm like, okay, it's all right. It's all right.
Right.
They're going to bring it down. They're going to ship it down. And
Well,
they're
it's
going to
funny
keep
because
maintaining it.
I got him in touch with Sarah Trimble, just because she's a stunt driver, and she has this, I forget what year hers is, but 85 Porsche. And then, I'm like, you interested? She's like, how long? And I'm like, a year. She's like, ha ha ha, no.
Yeah.
You're doing you're doing the pimping on getting these cars?
My friend Johnny.
Terry Cargus?
No, my friend Johnny Eisen is.
Okay.
He just started there, but he's an.
Why am I not
incredible-
aware of this stuff? What are you working these side hustles?
They just call me.
All right.
I'm not getting paid. First of all,
Oh,
it's a
okay, that's
museum.
fine. Yeah, do whatever.
Yeah.
Weirdo. Like, why wouldn't you get paid? Like, this is strange.
That's what I keep telling them. No, but anyways, I know a lot of Peterson people, and they know I know a lot of people.
MotorTrend came from Peterson, so there should be something there.
Listen, I've been trying
Yeah,
to get I've been trying to get cars out of the Peterson my entire career. It's yet to happen, and I'm good friends with people. I've gotten people jobs there.
Well, you mentioned Sarah Trimble, who's a stunt
Yep.
driver. Do you have stunt driving on your resume?
No, I don't. But I did this movie. I did Geostorm, and I drove this little EV Mercedes smart car. I did all my stunt driving. Well, I didn't mean to, but
Precision
I started
driving.
Yeah, I started driving it, and the guy's like, "Oh, why don't you just do all the driving?" right? And so because I don't talk about it, but he just kind of knew that he kind of saw the way I was driving and realized I could do everything.
Well, that's the knock on actors, right?
Yeah.
Like on their resume, like especially
Precision driver.
they're like precision driver means you have a driver's license, right? Because
right.
a lot of like the New York guys are like, I don't know how to drive, and then like stunt driver 1 is like you can parallel park.
So I don't really advertise because I don't. It's dangerous, right?
Oh,
and
it's
I don't want to
super
screw up. You know, I don't want to like. There's a story in Hong Kong about this one actor who said he was a drifter. And so there's one scene where he had to do just a left turn down the street, and it didn't require him to drift at all. But he goes to the other actor. He's like, "Watch this! I'm going to drift this, right?" And so he drifts and he overshoots it, and he hits the cameraman, the camera, everything. Like 5 guys took him out, right? Yeah. And like after that, like I've learned not to mess around on set. Like I've done the stupid things like that.
A lot of stunts are like with water. You know?
Yes. Well, if you ever notice in every movie, the streets are always wet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? They wet down every street because it looks better at night when you have a black.
Well, I don't even mean that.
pavement,
I just know I know a lot of stunt drivers, and they're like, that's what we hate is like jumping over water or like the car, driving the car into water. And like, just things can go so wrong in water.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
definitely. If you get trapped in the car, and water,
or just
stuff,
anything.
So I don't advertise it, but if they want me to do it, and it looks pretty innocuous, I'll do it, you know. But if I'm not jumping stuff, I'm not gonna do it.
They have
I want to preserve my spine.
People for that. They're disposable.
Everyone goes back to how McQueen did all his own stunts.
He did.
Like,
he did.
Including the motorcycle stuff.
Yeah.
But we're running out of time. The one thing I did want to chat about, because we focus so much on your time in Asia and you're a big Chinese and Hong Kong movie star. When did you make the jump to U.S. film and TV, and what can people go see?
Sure. So I did a small movie called Europa Report. It's a sci-fi movie, hard sci-fi, which is cool. That was kind of my first taste into it. We shot it in New York.
2013.
Yeah. And it was really, I did it, it was a really cool, small indie movie. Then I got a taste for it, and I was like, oh, okay. Because, when I was in Hong Kong, I was looking at the market here and going, is there a space for an Asian American actor? And I kept seeing it. It was like, no, it's not time yet. And finally, I got asked to do that movie, and I had a cool time on it. And then I got asked to do Geostorm, the one I was just talking about. And then a producer I'd met on some general meetings here had a deal with AMC, and they wanted to do a TV show, right? And they wanted to do a martial arts TV show. And she calls me from Hong Kong, from LA, and while I was in Hong Kong, she goes, "Hey, would you want to partner up with me and help produce this thing? It's a martial art. We want to do Hong Kong level martial arts on American TV." And I was like, okay, this can be really difficult for TV, but I think we can do it as long as we have a Hong Kong crew doing it, like Hong Kong stunt team doing it.
Right.
And so that became Into the Badlands, right? And at the time, I was not planning on being in it. I was 40 already at the time. I was like, I don't want to beat my body up on a TV show, right? And also, she quoted something that I was like, I was part of, which is Man with Iron Fist, the RZA directed movie, right? And it was a fun project, but it was very kind of kitsch, right? And I'm like, I don't want to do something kitschy. And she said, because the AMC was like, they talked about the idea after seeing the premiere of Man with Iron Fist, right? And I was like, but I don't want to do something kitsch. Like, if we do, I want to do something cool, right? I mean, not that wasn't cool, but kitschy, making fun of the martial arts scene is not what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so we started to develop this thing. And then as we got Al Goff and Miles Millar, who famously just did Wednesday on Netflix, they started to write the script, and I actually started to fall in love with the story. And I was like, oh, I could probably do this then, not knowing how much fighting I would really have to do on that show. That show kicked my ass, literally, 3 seasons of that. 2 fights per episode.
I was going to say,
crazy.
it's all fighting. I watched.
Yeah, it's more than most people have to do in their entire careers in fighting. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But so that really brought me back. So that was in 2014. My mom passed away, and my dad was kind of alone, and so I needed to kind of be back here. So all these things were kind of a mix of like a decision to move back. So I moved back, and we did our first season of that in New Orleans, And so I was around home. I could be around my dad more often, and then I just decided to stay here because my daughter was here. I realized like the life was a lot easier as a family here because of like nobody was into our business and all that stuff. And so I just decided to stay. And so I was traveling back and forth. I would do a project there a year and come back here and do a project here until COVID. And then I just didn't want to quarantine anymore. So didn't want to quarantine. So that's why I stopped going back. But I'll eventually get back there at some point. I miss it. I love working on Hong Kong films. But the American thing, it was Badlands that really, really brought me back.
Interesting. Back there permanently? Like to live?
Yeah, to live. To live.
Oh, you do?
What's that?
So you're not.
No,
You're
no.
not gonna.
Oh, yeah, back. So you mean back to Hong Kong permanently?
Yeah.
No. Sorry. No.
No.
I'll probably stay here because my daughter's in school here now.
Sure.
And so I'd like to go back and forth for work.
Does she? She was born here.
She was born in Hong Kong, but we moved her out here before she turned 1. So
she has an ID card.
yeah, she does. She has a Hong Kong passport and a U.S. passport. So.
Ah, wow.
Nice.
And which one does she like better? Does she know? Does she?
She kind of, well, every time we've been back to Hong Kong during the summer and it's like so hot. Yeah, she's like, it's hot, I don't want to go out. And she just wants to stay inside the whole time, right? So to her, Asia means hot. And so, but I would have to say I definitely identify as being Chinese, as being a mixed race kid.
Okay.
She likes Chinese food. She prefers Chinese food.
Well,
over
hang
anything,
on.
right?
She's half Jewish. Of course, she likes Chinese.
Yeah, that's
Come
true.
on, don't,
That's true.
don't go there.
What are we eating on Christmas?
Right,
Chinese
exactly.
food for sure.
We
right?
just had to place our order at the Chinese restaurant in Florida. We were going out there for Christmas.
Oh, is that okay?
But we get Chinese
Yep,
food, and
yep.
like last year it took 3 hours. My poor father-in-law sitting
Oh,
there,
my God.
we like pre-ordered it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that's the old joke, right?
Yeah.
That's the Jewish,
Yes,
the
yes.
Hebrew calendar is at like 57 something, Chinese calendars at 4,000 something. What that proves is somehow Jews were able to live without Chinese food for 1,700 years. We don't know how.
So I always joke about how my father-in-law is a big Jewish man, or no, a small Chinese man trapped in a big Jewish man's body, right? Because he loves Asian food, and
course.
For our wedding, he designed. He's a foodie. He's on Ugly Delicious. He's been on that, but he organized a food menu. So for our wedding, we had matzo ball soup with hand-pulled Chinese noodles.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing.
Sounds
And we had all kinds of like these weird Jewish Chinese fusion stuff. It was cool.
Nice.
Wait, your father-in-law's an Ugly Delicious?
He's one of on the dumpling episode, I think. His name's Gary Selesner. He used to be the president of Caesar's Palace.
What?
And so yeah,
Wow.
he's retired now. But his whole thing was bringing all the restaurants.
Right.
So he brought Nobu over there.
No kidding.
Rayo's, all those restaurants in there. Defar's Pizza, which is his favorite pizza plot. He's brought that little thing in there.
Oh yeah.
So you get any restaurant you want, you go to Vegas, kind of.
Yeah, that's pretty much so. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Nice.
I wasn't gonna ask you. Oh, what? Your daughter's in Chinese immersion, learning Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
You making
Yeah.
plans?
You cool with that? Or what, you prefer to learn Cantonese or?
Well, this is the thing. Is like, I know how hard it is
hard.
to learn Cantonese, and then like how useful is it going to be in the future? Honestly, right?
Yeah.
Like so, to me, I feel like I just
How
want.
dare you? But yes, you're
Yes.
correct.
No. Look, I love Cantonese. Right? It's an awesome language. I'm most fluent in Cantonese because I feel like most myself when I speak it because there's so much slang. Right. Mandarin, I can speak it well, but I don't know all the slang. And there's different slang. Taiwan slang versus mainland slang, totally different. So I don't feel myself speaking Mandarin, but I feel really myself speaking Cantonese. But the decision was hard because it's like, where's she going to go with that? And it's really, really difficult. And there's no like Romanized system. I went through this whole process of learning it, right? And there's no Romanized system of learning it. It's just really hard to learn it. And so I didn't want her to go through that. So I just chose Mandarin because for the future, really, that's really what she needed to
Well, in the
learn.
future, in this inevitable future, none of it's going to matter because all the robots are going to do all the translation instantaneously for us.
Sure.
I mean,
but I wanted her to have Chinese in her head, like
Yeah,
in terms of
that's
the language, the written language, right? Because I didn't get that, and that was like my biggest regret of not going to Chinese school when I was a little kid. Like my parents wanted me to go, and I was like, I'm not going to school on the weekends. No way. I refused.
Oh,
right?
and you were able to do
and
that.
they were cool.
I went and I still didn't get it. So
Oh, you went to Chinese school on the weekends?
Yeah.
Oh.
Friday nights, man.
I took Hebrew school for years. I speak like nothing.
Can you read it?
I can phonetically sound out Hebrew.
Right,
I mean, and by the way, like, give me about 2 weeks to come back up,
Brush
to
up
speed.
on it,
But
right, sure.
my nephew got bar mitzvah the other day, and I had to do an aliyah where you're doing the some brachi over something, and like I can read it, but man, is it like something I never think about.
Yeah, we suck.
I mean, I wish my first language was actually Yiddish. I
Oh, really?
First, but my grandma raised me because both my parents worked, and so her and my cousin would sit there and just yell at each other in Yiddish all day.
Right.
And so I remember being able to understand them. Never really could speak it that well.
Right.
But now sometimes when I go back to Germany, if I'm there for like more than a week, it suddenly
comes in, right?
I just understand what people are saying, like very like the way a 3-year-old sees the world. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But they don't know that I know that. So
Right.
It's kind of good. But yeah, so it's
Yes, I think it's important to get it in as a kid because like I didn't get it in as a kid and it was tough for me. But I do have a knack for language, but if I didn't have that, I would have been struggling because I have friends that yeah, a lot of ABCs tried to go over there and make it, right?
Yep.
But they couldn't get the language down, and they never did. And so it was really difficult for them. And you can't do it without getting language down. you
Right.
know?
Right. And look, we know it's good for kids to know as many languages as possible.
Yes.
It's just more and more doors open, more opportunities, better for your brain.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my kid's going to start Mandarin soon, actually.
Oh, really?
Well, it's an after school thing at his school.
But yeah, it's really good. Just have it. Just have it there. You know.
Yeah.
So you're and we got to wrap up here, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about whatever you're working on right now that you want to rep, if anything, or just tell us, like, hey, welcome to. You've been now in LA, what, 2 years?
No, I just since August.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So welcome to
A few
LA.
months.
Yeah.
Let's see. American Born Chinese coming out in March on Disney Plus.
Great.
So really proud of that. It's a fun project to work on.
And that's a series?
Yeah, it's an 8-episode show. I think we
cool.
might be doing a second season. I play the Monkey
sweet.
King, so I'm in like monkey prosthetics, all that. And then Student Driver, which you guys are wearing our gear. Me and Sung are working on that heavily. We have a whole bunch of stuff releasing, and we release things in small little groups, and we do limited edition, like 250 drops here and
Right.
there. But we're having Student Driver Racing, Student Driver and Lifestyle. We're doing all that. But Student Driver is not just a company of selling crap, right? It's also what we realize is like being who we are, we have tremendous access to a lot of cool car culture stuff. And so we want to share that with the community that we have. So we've done things like during all the Asian hate stuff, right? We organized 2 big rallies,
I'm glad
right?
you brought this up.
So we did one in LA and we went and did in the Bay Area, right? And the real point about that was like I knew there's a lot of Asians in the car community. There are a lot of people that were upset about all that stuff that was going on at the time, but they didn't know how to engage. They didn't know how to express themselves, right? It's like, so how do you do that? And a lot of people criticize me, like, how does showing up with a Lamborghini show you don't like Asian hate, right? But it's like, it's about letting these people come and express themselves. So what we did, we met at Auto Conduct downtown LA. 500 cars showed up. It was crazy.
Right.
And then we went to David Lee's place in Walnut, the Ferrari collector David Lee went to his place. So we did like basically a car protest and drove down to Walnut, California. And it was like, 45-minute drive, 500 cars heading down the freeway. It was a sight to see. And then we did the same thing in the Bay Area with at the Alameda Naval Base. Another 500 cars showed up there for that. So we're trying to engage the community. We're trying to engage our own student driver community on like giving them access to what we have access to. So on our Instagram and also on our YouTube stuff, we're going to start putting content for people to check out what we're doing. So like Student Driver Racing, my first season of racing, we did a documentary, and we're going to slowly release that over time on the YouTube channel.
I feel like
and
if you
do all
want,
that stuff.
if you want to do the Stop Asian Hate, you got to do it in New York at some point.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot going on there as well.
And I got some friends. We got a couple guys out there.
Yeah.
A restaurant. We can probably can't do.
It's hard to do car stuff
We
there.
do 5 cars, not 500.
I was gonna say
I mean, hey, early morning, there's nowhere better than New York to drive.
that's true.
It's
That
fun.
is nice.
Yeah, the
fun.
pavement's pretty. It's
fun, though.
It's
It's
terrible.
fun.
Oh.
I did Broadway once, like at 5 a.m., all the way up.
In what car?
All the way up. Oh, some rental, some
Right,
nothing.
right.
Chevy, blah, blah, blah. But it was just, got the car, 5 a.m., we were heading up to Hudson Valley, but like, there was no cars. It was like a Sunday, and just did Broadway all the way from basically where it started, like up through Harlem. It was just insane. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
All green
Because
lights.
that strip it's a long strip. It's
yeah,
a long way you can go.
yeah. It's like 10 miles or something. Yeah, it was wild.
Well, we got the high sign about 5 times.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, this is good.
Look, this was great. Like we were talking about this earlier. Well, our second episode that
Of
we
the
did,
InEVitable.
which we started this year, was Sung,
Oh, cool.
and you're the last.
So we bookended
Bookended
the season. Nice.
the season. So, and this was great. And
That's only because Reggie Watts showed up a day early. So
yeah, basically. But
I saw that episode. Reggie is awesome. I love Reggie.
we love Reggie.
he's great.
I'm doing a photo shoot. Me and Reggie now have a fake band, so we have no music recorded, but we're doing a fake photo shoot with our buddy Misha tomorrow. So.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I saw him years and years and years ago in England because I was just there for work. And it was Souls of Mischief were playing. And he opened for them as a comedy act, right?
Yes. Right.
And I was like, whoa, who's this guy? It's like amazing because he was funny. And then he was doing the looping thing. And this is way before the looping thing ever came out before. So I was like amazed by it. And then he was beatboxing, everything. It was just awesome. And then to
James
see
Corden
the success
show.
that he has now. It's
Oh,
like
he's
amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Well, you get them all here on The InEVitable.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Including Daniel Wu. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
for
you guys
being
for having me.
here.
That
This
was
was
really
great.
fun. That was a lot of fun.
And thanks for the hoodies.
Yes,
Yes.
this is great.
You guys look good in them.
Thank you.
It looks great. I've been staring at them the whole time. I was like, this looks really good.
You should do. Speaking of like Spy versus Spy, limited edition Johnny Ed.
Oh,
hoodies.
come on.
We will. Well, sure.
Something, just put you on the spot. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.